Chapter 432. St. Lord no. Meng Ji was panicking. He didn't know Lu Li's abilities. As far as he was concerned, Lu Li was too young, and he was only at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. How could Lu Li be a match for Meng Hua? Meng Hua wouldn't be hurt, even if Lu Li just stood there and let Meng Ji hit him. Meng Ji knew all too well how strong the Mammoth race and the Titan race were. Yi Chao was worried as well. He didn't know Lu Li's abilities well either. Lu Li fought twice after he went back to the northern desert. The first time was with Du Hong when Yi Chao wasn't there. The second time was with Qi Ke. But Lu Li only used his blood claw and nothing else. Bai Qiuxue was nervous. She whispered, "Lu Li, let me go. I can charm him." No. Naturally, Lu Li could not let anyone else take his place because he had to give the Titan race confidence, to prove that he could lead them back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land. What would be the point if Bai Qiuxue did it? Ha ha ha. Meng Hua laughed. He looked at Lu Li with ridicule and said, "Very good, human. You have guts. If you want to play, I will play with you. But I cannot represent the Titan race. If you can stay alive for the time, for one incense stick to burn, I will ask our clan leader to come over." Okay, it's a deal. Lu Li nodded with confidence. Then he looked at Qi Ke and said, "Let's find a spacious place. I will fight with Patriarch Meng. Don't say anything else. I have made up my mind." Yi Jie and Meng Ji looked at each other and nodded silently. If Lu Li was defeated, then they would have to protect him by force. Bai Qiuxue had the same idea. Qi Ke flew to a huge valley with the others. They drove away all the hags in the valley, and Qi Ke ordered them to stay away. Lu Li and the others stood on the peak next to the valley, while Meng Hua stood in the middle. The other 5 titans stood on the other side of the valley with sarcasm, like 5 pillars reaching to the sky. "Little White, wake up." Lu Li wanted to wake up Little White that had been sleeping for a long time. On their way back to the northern desert from the eastern Central Plains, Little White ate many soul crystals and it hadn't woken up yet. Failure was not an option. That was why Lu Li wanted to wake Little White up to help him. However, when he took Little White out of his sleeve, it was still in a deep sleep. Forget it. Lu Li handed Little White to Bai Qiuxue, took out his fate wheel, and flew up slowly. He had asked Yi Jie just now, and the souls of the Titans should not be considered strong. The Titan race was similar to the Mammoth race. They were creatures with well-developed limbs but simple minds. Naturally, their souls would not be too strong. Let's start the timer. Lu Li took a deep breath and released the burning blood skill. He looked at Yi Chao and the others, cupped his fists, and said to Meng Hua, "Patriarch Meng, please." "All right," Meng Hua shouted. The dark golden skin on his body shone brightly, and a terrifying qi and blood was emitted from his body. At that moment, Lu Li felt it was not a titan standing in front of him, but a beast king, an ancient wild beast. Boom! Meng Hua stomped on the ground, and 2 deep pits appeared on the ground. Meng Hua's huge body flew up. A huge dark golden hand, like the hand of a god, grabbed towards Lu Li as fast as lightning. So fast, Lu Li's pupils contracted. He controlled his fate wheel to step back at once, and at the same time, released his cloning skill. In an instant, there were more than a dozen Lu Li in the air. Every one of them was on a fate wheel, flying around in all directions. It was the first time for them to see this skill of Lu Li's. They were all stunned. Yi Cha and the patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race looked at each other in astonishment. None of them could see Lu Li's real body. Profound meaning, Yi Cha said. He was excited. Only a profound meaning could be so powerful. Not even a secret skill from the ancient times could be hidden from warriors of the noble lord realm. Lu Li seemed to have mastered the speed profound meaning not long ago. Now he had released another one. The patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race were both envious and happy. They hadn't learned any profound meaning, yet Lu Li had the chance to learn too. Comparisons were odious. Bai Qiuxue's eyes glowed. She could tell from the surprise on the faces of Yi Cha and the others how powerful Lu Li's skill was. She secretly felt proud in her heart. The man she loved was so outstanding. Meng Hua's eyes were filled with astonishment. It was true that he could not see Lu Li's real body. Seeing Lu Li's clones flying around, Menghua had to resort to the simplest method. Hoi! Menghua clenched his fist and smashed at one of Lu Li's clones. This punch was so powerful that it shook the space around it, causing ripples to spread out. When the ripples spread out, 2 of Lu Li's clones were shattered. The clan leader of the Titan race was cheered up. He jumped up from the ground and punched at nothing. The ripples in space shattered all of Lu Li's clones. Clones. Lu Li created clones again. He looked solemn. Menghua was large in size, but he was agile and fast. He was even faster than Mingyu. Lu Li didn't dare to get close to Menghua. The time for one incense stick to burn was fast. Lu Li could hold on. That being said, Lu Li's goal was not to survive the time for one incense stick to burn. He wanted to injure Menghua so as to awe the clan leader of the Titan race. Otherwise, when the clan leader of the Titan race came, Lu Li would have a hard time convincing him. This trip to the deserted world would be pointless, and the deserted world would be lost forever. The thing was, Menghua was fast, and his attacks were ferocious. How could Lu Li get close? Even if he did, he would be smashed to death by Menghua. Speed, I am too slow. Lu Li kept creating clones. He controlled them to move closer to Menghua while he stayed far away in case he was attacked. Lu Li began to think about how to speed up. Only when he was fast could he get close to Menghua and hurt him with his blood claw. Speed, profound meaning. After much thought, he decided to use it. The thing was, he had only scratched the surface of this profound meaning. He didn't know how to use it at all. Hoi! Menghua kept punching, smashing the clones one by one. As time went on, Menghua was getting impatient. The time for one incense stick to burn was almost up. He couldn't do anything to a human young man. If the news got back to the Titan race, his reputation would be damaged. He rolled his eyes and realized that he could smash the clones that were close to him. But there was one clone that was still flying in the distance. Menghua had an idea. His legs glowed in a dark golden color, and he sped up. His fist smashed at the clone in the distance like a sharp sword. This was Lu Li's real body. He had been thinking about how to use the speed profound meaning, so he was distracted. Now, a fist as big as a casserole was getting closer and closer. From the depth of his soul came a sense of fatal danger. The fist was getting closer, and the ripples in space were spreading out. Even his clones would be shattered. It would be too late for him to run away. Oh no. Menghua stopped. Meng Ji and Yi Cha were alarmed. The ripples in space could not shatter the clone, which meant that this was the real body. How could Lu Li survive after being hit by Menghua? Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Yi Cha and the others flew up. Bai Qiuxue was taken aback. A cinnabar dot lit up between her eyebrows, and her fate will came out. She flew over to Lu Li. Don't come over. Right at that moment, Lu Li shouted. His body remained motionless, his eyes fixed on the rippling space waves. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth curled up. He smiled. P.S. I wanted to write 5 chapters, but I didn't. I will write 5 tomorrow. Also, I recommend an urban novel, Dao Yiging's Perfect Life. Old Freak was following this book as well. It is a good read. Those who like urban novels should not miss it. Chapter 4:33. Lu Li had been trying to figure out how to release the speed profound meaning. At this moment, he had a vague idea. Menghua's punch had deeply touched him. How could a person's punch in the air cause a space shockwave? It was normal for a powerful warrior to tear apart space and cause ripples in space. What was not normal was that the ripples caused by Menghua's punch were so horrifying that they could shatter Lu Li's clones. No matter how strong a warrior's punch was, no matter how powerful the ripples caused by the punch were, the strength in the punch would not be transmitted into space. Spatial oscillation was just a fluctuation in space. How could it scatter his doppelganger? Lu Li had a deep understanding of the mirror image profound meaning. Even though the number of his clones didn't increase, they were stable. Regular ripples in space could not shatter them. If so, how did he shatter his clones? Clearly, there was a powerful force in the ripples in space. Lu Li could feel it clearly. If he were hit by the ripples in space, he would be smashed away while spitting out blood. When the punch was in the air, the force wouldn't be transmitted out. Where did the force in the ripples in space come from? At this moment, Luli had an answer. This was not an average move. It had touched upon space and triggered the force in heaven and earth. Tornadoes could spin because they triggered the force in heaven and earth. What Luli learned from this punch was not the space profound meaning, but how to trigger the force in heaven and earth. It was the same with the speed profound meaning. Luli didn't know how to use the speed profound meaning before. At this moment, he was enlightened. As long as he could trigger the force in heaven and earth, he could release the speed profound meaning. Menghua's fist was only 30 feet away from Luli. It would arrive in an instant. The fate wheel under Lu Li's feet began to spin at a fast speed. It was getting faster and faster. Because of Lu Li's fast spinning, a gale sprang up. Whoosh! Lu Li suddenly vanished in midair. All they saw was a glare, and then Lu Li vanished from their sight. Swish, swish! Menghua's fist pierced through the air, but the man in front of him disappeared. Menghua looked up to the sky in surprise. Lu Li's speed was unimaginably fast. He was about to be killed by Menghua's fist, but he dodged it. Bai Qiuxue and the others looked up and saw that Lu Li was more than 300 feet above Menghua. Everyone was relieved, but they were also speechless, especially Yi Cha and the others. The speed of the Cyan Phoenix clan was the fastest in the Central Plains. Even the elders would not have been able to dodge that punch just now. Only Yishi could. Yi Cha was as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior. In other words, Lu Li was as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior? Impossible. Yi Cha and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. What kind of profound meaning could raise the speed of someone in the middle stage of the imperishable realm to the speed of a Renhuang? Could it be a profound meaning above the 7th grade? Lu Li once said that his profound meaning was the speed profound meaning, which he named himself. Yi Cha and the others never read about it in their ancestral records. The speed of the speed ultimacy was also fast, so the others didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that it was just an ordinary ultimacy. For his speed to reach such a terrifying level, it could only be explained by a profound meaning of the 7th rank or above. A profound meaning above the 7th grade. Even Yi Cha was jealous. Profound meanings were the hardest to learn, not to mention those above the 7th grade. With this profound meaning, when Lu Li reached the Noble Lord realm, not even human sovereign realm warriors would be able to catch up with him. Whoosh! A sword suddenly appeared in Lu Li's hand. With a white glare, he generated more than a dozen clones. Then more than a dozen, Lu Li spun around and flew away. Menghua and the warriors of the Titan race were frightened. Lu Li was too fast. They could only see a white glare, and then one by one Lu Li would come down and stab at Menghua with their swords. Boy! Menghua punched at the Lu Li one by one. Every time his fist passed by, space would tremble and Lu Li's clones would be shattered. However, Lu Li's clones kept coming at Menghua. Menghua was worried that one of them might be the real one. He didn't stop for a moment and kept punching. Soon the time for one incense stick to burn was up. Chapter 434. There was a hole on Menghua's back with blood gushing out. But Menghua didn't care. He just stared at Lu Li's hand. Lu Li cupped his fists, and the blood claw was gone. Therefore, his hand was fair and slender, no different from an average hand. That being said, his right hand was covered in blood, and it was still dripping down. Menghua and the 3 warriors of the Titan race looked at Lu Li's hand with surprise. Just now, Lu Li had been hiding his hand in his sleeve, and he was fast. He had his back to the 3 warriors of the Titan race, so they didn't see it clearly. But they didn't see anything wrong. Therefore, Menghua and the others were confused. They didn't know how Lu Li managed to get his hand into Menghua's heart. All hail Saint Lord! Mengji shouted. He knew very well that the defense of the Titan race was not weaker than that of the Mammoth race. What was more, there were some dark golden scales on Menghua's back. But Menghua still got in easily. Lu Li's abilities made Meng Ji more determined to follow him. A warrior at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm could be as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior? He could break through Meng Hua's defense easily. He was only 17 years old. How powerful could he be in dozens of years? All hail, Saint Lord. Yi Cha and the others bowed and shouted as well. Their eyes were glowing. Lu Li had used all he had today. His growth was beyond the expectation of Yi Cha and the others. They all saw hope. So powerful. Bai Qiuxue exclaimed to herself. Lu Li's eyes were glowing, and he showed his silver claw, but she didn't mind. Beauty was in the eye of the beholder. She would follow Lu Li without any complaint, even if he were to become an orc. Meng was stood there for a while. Then he took out a pellet from his interspatial ring and swallowed it. He said in a muffled voice, I am not as good as you, and I admit defeat. I will invite our family patriarch over now. Please wait for 3 days. As for what our family patriarch will say when he comes, I don't care. Meng Hua's willingness to admit defeat left a good impression on Lu Li. These races were not as cunning as the human race. They would not go back on their words, and they would admit defeat. This was a good thing. I took advantage of the situation. Patriarch Meng, don't worry. Lu Li gave Meng Hua a way out, but Meng Hua didn't appreciate it. He snorted and said, win is win and lose is lose. There is nothing to say. If he didn't stop, I would have been dead. With that, Meng Hua, Li and Hua. Meng Hua left and arranged accommodations for Hua and the others. Hua, she, Lu Li and the others went back to the imperial palace. Yi Cha sat down and cupped his fists. Congratulations, Saint Lord. You have made great progress in profound meaning. From what I can see, this profound meaning is at least a 7th grade profound meaning, possibly even a 9th grade profound meaning. The Ming, Li said, and Lan, the Yin Shan, the clan, the Ling, the Li, and said. The Lu rank God Lu. The Li didn't Hua. Li didn't Lu. He, Lu. Lu didn't Lu, Li didn't. Li from not. Actually, he from, he. Lu Renhuang's profound meaning was only of the 6th rank. Lu Renhuang was the most talented genius of the Central Plains in the past 100,000 years. Then, wouldn't Yi Cha be more powerful than him? Yi Cha explained, only a profound meaning above the 7th rank can help a warrior at the middle stage of the eternal realm to reach the human sovereign realm. Middle stage of the eternal realm? Lu Li was surprised. Then he remembered that he could be as fast as a warrior at the middle stage of the eternal realm with his 2-layered fate wheel. Fate wheel? Lu Li thought about it. He spun on the spot and released the profound meaning. He rushed out of the imperial palace as fast as he could. What disappointed him was he didn't use his fate wheel. He only released his profound meaning. Even though his speed was increased, it was not that much. At best, he could only be as fast as a warrior at the peak of the eternal realm. Yi Cha and the others frowned in confusion when they saw Lu Li dashing out in a gust of wind and then coming back at a slower speed. Lu Li was disappointed. He just confirmed one thing. The profound meaning of speed was not that powerful. It was not a profound meaning above the 7th rank. The reason why he could be so fast was because of his fate wheel. In other words, the fate wheel increased his speed. After he released the profound meaning, the speed of the fate wheel was further increased. His fate wheel was strange and miraculous. But the profound meaning of speed was not a profound meaning above the 7th rank. Even though he had confirmed this, Lu Li soon adjusted his mind. The fate wheel was his. Whether the profound meaning of speed was of the 7th rank or not, at least his speed was horrifying. That was his real fighting capacity. From now on, he wouldn't be afraid of warriors of the noble lord realm. At least, he could run away if he couldn't win. He didn't explain to Yi Cha and the others. He didn't understand the dragon pattern on his fate wheel. The dragon pattern was his biggest secret. He would not tell anyone, not even Bai Qiuxue. He asked Yi Cha and the others to leave. He looked at Bai Qiuxue and explained, Qiuxue, I have some secrets, but I don't understand them myself. So, I'm not going to tell you now. All I can say is that I am a pure-blooded human. Stop it. Bai Qiuxue covered Lu Li's mouth with her pretty hand. She smiled and said, so what if you are of another race? What I like is you, not the others. Lu Li smiled and hugged Bai Qiuxue in his arms. But he grew solemn. In a few days, the clan leader of the Titan race would come. Would everything go well? The Titan race originated from the Mammoth race, which they all agreed on. But the Titan race would not take orders from the Mammoth race. Meng didn't even care about Meng Ji, let alone God of Meng, who was at the human sovereign realm. The Titan race hated humans. How could the clan leader believe that Lu Li could lead the Titan race back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land? How could the clan leader of the Titan race believe that Lu Li himself could lead the Titan race back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral land? If the Titan race could not be brought under control, then there would be no need to fight for the deserted world. If Song Qi sneaked back to the northern desert without conquering the deserted world, Lu Li didn't know what to do next. Bai Qiuxue sensed something was wrong. She looked up at Lu Li. Her gem-like eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. She sighed and said, "Lu Li, don't put too much pressure on yourself. We can leave the northern desert and live in seclusion on an island." Live in seclusion? Lu Li put on a bitter smile. If he were an average person with such a beautiful wife, living in seclusion would be a good way out. Live in seclusion? What about Lu Ling? What about his father and mother? What about Ming Yu and Yi Cha, the Bai family? There are no resources on the island. Nobody could cultivate. The Bai family would fall apart at once. Bai Qiuxue sighed. She knew her idea was naive. Women in love would lose their intelligence. Never mind. There is always a way out. Chapter 435. The king of the Titan race had arrived in just 3 days. Moreover, he had come alone, seemingly unafraid of any ambush. Of course, no one in the deserted world could ambush and kill him. He was one of the 2 strongest cultivators in the deserted world. God of Menghua didn't know how Menghua sent the message, and the content was unknown. Just like that, God of Meng broke into the hag race and threw the entire race into chaos. Chi-Ker and the others immediately went to welcome them with the leaders of the Yiksha clan. Menghua had received the news long ago, so he went to welcome them immediately. Lu Li and the others remained calm. They were here to subdue the Titan race. Even if God of Meng was a human sovereign realm warrior, they could not lose their composure. Otherwise, people would be loyal to God of Meng instead of Lu Li. Boom! God of Meng walked over with Meng Hua and the others. Before they got close to the Forbidden Land, a beast-like energy spread over and enveloped the entire Forbidden Land. Even human sovereign realm warriors were horrifying, not to mention that the Titan race was even more so. God of Meng had clearly come with ill intentions. He was at the peak of his power, suffocating Lu Li and the others. It was like the dark clouds before the storm, making people involuntarily feel suffocated, depressed, and terrified. Lu Li didn't come out. Meng Ji and Yi Cha came out. They stood outside the Forbidden Land and looked at God of Meng indifferently. The Titan race originated from the Mammoth race. As the current clan leader of the Mammoth race, Meng Ji was confident. Even though his realm was not as high as that of God of Meng, his status was high. The Cyan Phoenix race was also an ancient race, and the Mammoth race had always been following the Cyan Phoenix race. In other words, the Mammoth race was the Green Phoenix race's little brother, and the Titan race was the little brother of the little brother. Yichan naturally had pride in his bones. What was a Renhuang? Back then, the Mammoth clan and the Cyan Phoenix clan had many human sovereigns. There was a slight difference between God of Meng and Menghua. God of Meng was larger in size, and his skin was more golden, between gold and dark gold. His big eyes were filled with indifference, and he had a dignified demeanor. He stared at Meng Ji for a moment and said, "You are the current chief of the Mammoth race, Meng Ji?" Meng Ji nodded and said, "God of Meng, why don't you bow to me? Don't tell me your Titan race doesn't recognize your ancestors anymore." Meng Ji's words made God of Meng's expression change. Meng Hua and the others pulled a long face. Meng Ji had no other choice. He knew very well what Lu Li was here for. He wanted to conquer the deserted world for Lu Li. Therefore, he had to use the ancestral race to pressure God of Meng. In the divine Great Land, the clan was something that people valued very much. For example, Luli had no affection for the Lu family, and he was disappointed by the Lu family. That being said, Luli was still unhappy that the Lu family had exiled him. He wanted to build a new Lu family at the northern desert. The clan was the root of a martial artist. After death, the spirit tablet could be placed in the ancestral temple of the clan. That way, one would not become a wandering ghost. There were countless forces in this world, but all of them were formed by clans. The family was more important than anything else. The benefits of the family were above everything else. It was obvious how important the family was to the people of the divine Great Land. The relationship between the Mammoth race and the Titan race was not good, but the Titan race originated from the Mammoth race. This was something that could not be changed. As the current clan leader of the Mammoth race, Mengji had the right to make God of Meng kneel. If God of Meng didn't, it would be disrespectful to his ancestors unless the Titan race became independent and disowned the Mammoth race. A glint of coldness rose in God of Meng's bell-like eyes. He bowed, cupped his fists, and said, "Greetings, clan leader of the ancestral race." God of Meng, who was at the human sovereign realm, lowered his head. But he didn't kneel. His attitude was clear. The Titan race recognized the Mammoth race, but it didn't mean that the Titan race had to listen to the Mammoth race. Meng Ji and Yi Cha were satisfied with this result. Meng Ji said, "God of Meng, please rise. We are one race. Now our ancestral land is occupied and our disciples are dying. Our future is bleak. It is time for us to work together and develop together. I hope that you can see the situation clearly and forget about the past. Let's take back our ancestral land and rebuild our glory." Once again, Meng Ji used his identity to pressure God of Meng. There was no other way. If Meng Ji were at the human sovereign realm and God of Meng was only at the noble lord realm, he wouldn't have to speak in such a humble manner. For the Mammoth race, the Titan race was a traitor, a bastard. Meng Hua and the others showed expressions of ridicule. God of Meng was surprised. Meng Ji's words were bullying, but he did admit one thing. The two races belonged to the same race. Did it mean that the Mammoth race was willing to accept the Titan race and admit that the Titan race was a branch of the Mammoth race? The ancestors of the Titan race betrayed the Mammoth race, and the Mammoth race regarded the ancestors as traitors. Even though the Mammoth race acquiesced to the existence of the Titan race, they never publicly acknowledged the status of the Titan race. Because of this, the ancestors of the Titan race died with everlasting regret. In his last words, he told every clan leader of the Titan race that they must find a way to gain the recognition of the Mammoth race and return to the ancestral race. Meng Ji gave a signal. God of Meng was intrigued. He thought about it and said, "Clan leader Meng Ji, what do you need us to do since you called me here?" Meng Hua had told him some things through a special method, but he needed confirmation from Meng Ji in person. Now that Meng Ji had offered him an olive branch, God of Meng would have to wait for Meng Ji to state his conditions and weigh the pros and cons before making a decision. Meng Ji and Yi Cha looked at each other. Both of them were excited. It seemed that God of Meng was concerned about the Mammoth race acknowledging the status of the Titan race. If so, this was a promising plan. Meng Ji presented the conditions he had prepared, but he didn't come up with the conditions. They were discussed by Lu Li and Yi Cha. Meng Ji said, "We are now occupying the entire northern desert, and we have a great force. We want to take advantage of the northern desert to grow, and when we get back to the central plains, we will take back our ancestral land. Therefore, we want to invite the Titan race to join us and work together." The sneer on the faces of the Titan race's patriarchs grew. The meaning in their eyes could not be clearer. They were saying in silence that Meng Ji and the others were overestimating themselves and talking nonsense. As the clan leader of the Titan race, God of Meng would not show too many emotions. He thought about it and asked, "Do you have a great force? Then, how many powerful warriors do you have? Are there any at the Earth Immortal Realm? How many human sovereign realm warriors do you have?" The question hit the nail on the head. Meng Ji was embarrassed. Even Yi Cha felt embarrassed. Meng Ji thought about it and said, "We don't have any human sovereign realm warriors now. But Saint Lord is talented. In a few years, you will reach the human sovereign realm, or even the earth immortal realm. As long as we have enough resources, we in the Cyan Phoenix race will develop soon. By then, there will be hope. Mengji's voice was fading away. Even he was losing confidence. Yi Cha and the others said nothing. Their faces were solemn. Ha ha ha. God of Meng laughed. He shook his head and sighed. Mengji, are you stupid? How did our 2 races get wiped out? How did the 10,000 races get slaughtered? Have you forgotten the pain now that you are healed? When the human race needs you, they will promise you anything. When they are done with you, they will raise their weapons again. How can you be loyal to a human punk just because of his promise? Chapter 436. God of Meng's voice was loud, so loud that even Yi Cha, Meng Ji, and the others were trembling. Lu Li and Bai Qiuxue in the imperial palace also felt their eardrums were ringing. God of Meng's words were not unreasonable. Back in the old days, the 10,000 races were strong and humans were weak. The 10,000 races didn't take humans seriously. Humans benefited from both sides. They befriended the other races and took advantage of this to develop. However, as humans grew stronger, they began to raise their butcher's knife. They started to fight against their former allies and take over territories. In the end, many of the 10,000 races were wiped out. Humans occupied the most fertile land of the Great Land and all the resources and treasures. The history of the rise of humans was a history of blood and tears for the 10,000 races. Many races were struggling to survive in small worlds, in wild mountains, and in corners. They never forgot the glory of the past, the history filled with blood and tears and hatred. History aside, could Lu Li, a young human, really lead the races back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral lands? God of Meng and the others thought it was ridiculous. Lu Li was only at the Fate Wheel realm. It was still unknown if he could reach the human sovereign realm or the Earth immortal realm. Even if he could, so what? How many Earth immortal realm warriors were there in the 6 forces? How powerful was the Samsara Palace? That was the most powerful force at the Central Plains. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot with such a small number of warriors. Yi Cha didn't dare to interrupt the conversation between Meng Ji and God of Meng for fear that the situation would get worse. He winked at Meng Ji, who came to his senses, and said, "An ancestor god of the Cyan Phoenix race got half a scroll of heaven augury spell, and he left a tablet. It states that Saint Lord can lead us back to the Central Plains and take back our ancestral lands." God of Meng, don't you believe in heaven augury spell? Heaven augury spell? God of Meng's eyes glowed. Meng Hua and the Titan race were surprised as well. Heaven augury spell was famous. It was one of the 10 divine skills. But God of Meng shook his head after some thoughts and said, "I don't believe in humans. Half a scroll of heaven augury spell can be wrong. This human was too weak. How could he turn the tides by himself? Ridiculous." What is so ridiculous? Just as Meng Ji was about to explain, 2 figures walked out of the forbidden area. Lu Li stood in front of Meng Ji, and Yi Cha looked at God of Meng and said, "Clan leader of God of Meng, I am Lu Li. I am 17, and I am at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. But I can defeat Patriarch Meng Hua. Why do you think I cannot reach the Earth immortal realm? What makes you so sure that after I break through to the Earth immortal level, I won't be able to sweep across the Central Province?" I don't know much about the feud between humans and other races, and I won't judge. But Clan Leader Yi and Meng Ji have seen what I have done over the years. They are not stupid, but they believe in me. I don't want to make any promises. I just want to say give me a chance to prove myself, and give you guys a chance too. What if I'm really like what the Heaven Augury art says? Lu Li had to come out, or else the deserted world would be ruined. If Song Qi entered the northern desert, he would be waiting for death. For himself, for everyone, he had to take the risk. Lu Li's words embarrassed Meng Hua, but it was a fact that Lu Li had defeated him. Meng Hua couldn't say much. God of Meng fell into silence again. He stared at Lu Li and said nothing. Lu Li's words were sincere and tempting. The last sentence touched God of Meng's heart. who didn't want to stay here for the rest of their lives, who didn't want to take back their ancestral land, obtain endless resources, develop the Titan race, and rebuild their glory. The problem was, God of Ming didn't dare to take the risk. This was because if they were wrong, the Titan race would completely disappear from this world. Although the Titan race might have remnants in other places, this was definitely the strongest Titan race bloodline. They had been hiding in the deserted world for many years. Finally, they had developed a human sovereign realm warrior and several noble lord realm warriors. If he were to act rashly, the efforts of so many years of his ancestors would be destroyed. Seeing that God of Ming was interested, Lu Li thought about it and said again, "Clan leader Ming, do you think you could be safe by hiding in the deserted world? Since we can find this place, it's hard to guarantee that the great clans of the Central Plains won't find their way here. At that time, you should know the consequences." Also, after a pause, Lu Li continued before God of Ming could say anything. "There are many mystical materials in the deserted world, but some of them must be in urgent need. Ally with us, and we can help you unify the deserted world and take over all the resources. Then, you can trade the mystical materials from the deserted world for the ones you need at the Central Plains. In this way, the Titan race can develop quickly. Maybe in decades, there will be more human sovereign realm warriors." Lu Li's words once again tempted God of Meng and Meng Hua. That was right. They were in desperate need of mystical materials, or else Meng Hua would have made the breakthrough by now. There were many mystical materials in the deserted world. However, some rare mystical materials could only be found at the Central Plains, not the deserted world. They didn't trust outsiders, so they naturally didn't dare to trade with outsiders. Otherwise, it would bring about a fatal disaster. If Lu Li did the trade, then he wouldn't be exposed. Once they got the mystical materials they needed, the Titan race could have many more noble Lord Realm warriors and some human sovereign realm warriors. God of Ming still said nothing. Lu Li had said what he needed to say. He quieted down and waited for God of Ming's decision. Mengji wanted to say something, but Yicha stopped him. Yicha knew it was pointless to say anything more. It all depended on God of Ming's decision. Time moved on. Lu Li and the others showed no emotion, but they were getting more and more nervous. After the time for one incense stick to burn, God of Ming finally said something. He looked at Lu Li and said, "You said you can help us unify the deserted world?" Lu Li nodded. God of Ming sneered and said, "Okay, I will give you a chance. If you can kill the clan leader of the stellar race, I will give him a chance. If you can kill the clan leader of the stellar race, I will pledge allegiance to you, and I will not go back on my word." Lu Li and the others were stunned. The clan leader of the stellar race was a human sovereign realm warrior. If they could kill a human sovereign realm warrior, why would they need to go to the Titan race? God of Ming snorted and said, "Since you are the chosen one according to the heaven augury spell, then you can create miracles. If you want me to pledge allegiance to you, you must show me your strength and means. I don't care how you do it. As long as you can kill the clan leader of the stellar race, the Titan race will be at your disposal. If you can't do it, then don't ever talk about this again. Let's go." With that said, God of Ming turned around and left in strides. Meng Hua and the others followed God of Ming without any hesitation. They were fast. In the time for more than a dozen breaths, they had disappeared into the mountains in the distance. Lu Li and the others looked at each other speechlessly, but it was understandable. No matter what Lu Li had said, God of Ming had his own pride and persistence. As Lu Li said, if Lu Li wanted him to pledge allegiance to God of Ming, he must demonstrate his strength and means. It was not easy for the Titan race to grow. God of Ming didn't dare to take the risk. If Lu Li could kill the clan leader of the stellar race, then it would prove that Lu Li was worthy of the Titan race's allegiance. God of Ming would take the risk. Clan leader of the stellar race. Chapter 437. They had screwed up. Everyone was down in the dumps. God of Ming was resolute. There was no room for negotiation unless Lu Li killed the clan leader of the stellar race. Lu Li still had some hope. He asked Bai Qiushue to ask Qi Ke for some information about the clan leader of the stellar race. The stellar race was the other most powerful race in the deserted world. It was easy to collect information. Chikur had a lot of it. The stellar race was one of the ancient races. In their heyday, they occupied the entire southeast of the Central Plains. This race had a very powerful divine ability that allowed them to teleport. They were named the stellar race because of their teleportation skill. Anyone of the stellar race that reached a certain realm could teleport. The powerful clan leader of the stellar race could travel more than 300 miles in an instant. He was almost unkillable. Lu Li's face turned pale when he heard the news. Even God of Meng and Lu Li together might not be able to kill the clan leader of the stellar race, let alone them. Let's go back. They had screwed up, but they had to move on. Lu Li was ready to go back to the northern desert. What if the northern desert was in danger after staying there for a while? Before they left, Chikur sent a message saying that God of Meng left an order before he left. Chikur was to guard the tunnel to the northern desert, and Lu Li was given half a year. If Lu Li could not kill the clan leader of the stellar race in half a year, the tunnel must be destroyed. With Meng Ji and Yi Cha here, God of Meng trusted Lu Li for now, or else the tunnel would be destroyed. Destroying it in half a year was for the safety of the deserted world. What if Lu Li colluded with some forces of the Central Plains to kill his way in? Half a year. The bitterness on Lu Li's face grew stronger. It seemed that the matter of the deserted world was doomed. He couldn't think of any other way, so he had to go back with the others. They teleported to the small world of green dwarfs, and Lu Li told the mammoth race to leave first. Then he called back the Bai family to guard the entrance and activated the formation. Lu Li didn't worry about the mammoth race going back. He told Yi Cha to arrange it, and they would go back the way they came. Lu Li said he would go back and think about what to do next before he let Meng Ji and the others know. He also said he would send some mystical materials so that the mammoth race could train more noble Lord Realm warriors. Meng Ji and the others knew that there was no turning back now. Their expressions were ugly, and they felt guilty, but they didn't know what to say. Lu Li brought Bai Qiushua back to the Heaven Prison Island and then teleported back to the Ling Empress City. The Ling Empress City was very peaceful. Currently, there was no news. Song Qi should still be trapped in the danger zone. Lu Li was not in a good mood. He didn't waste time talking to the others and started to cultivate by himself. Firstly, he had to stabilize his realm. Secondly, he had to think about whether there was a way out of this predicament. He was not a person who gave up easily. If there was even the slightest possibility, he would fight for it. Bai Qiushua was sensible enough to leave Lu Li alone. She began to cultivate as well. She wanted to further study the enchantment. If she could reach the second level, she might be able to charm human sovereign realm warriors, and then she could help Lu Li conquer the deserted world. Bai Xiaoshuang had been in closed-door cultivation. Maybe she was mocked by Lu Li because her realm was too low. Ming Yu and the others did not know where Lu Li had been or what was going on, but they all felt something was off. Everyone began to cultivate. As long as Song Qi was still alive, he was like a sharp sword hanging over everyone's head at the northern desert. Great patriarch of the Lu family gave Lu Li many mystical materials. The national treasury was filled with mystical materials and Xian crystals. Lu Li was not in need of mystical materials and Xian crystals for the time being. He told everyone to cultivate and not to worry about consuming mystical materials. 5 days had passed, but Lu Li couldn't come up with a solution. His realm, however, was stable. He decided not to think about the deserted world. That being said, there was still time. Lu Li didn't give up. He just focused on cultivation and didn't think about it. He began to study the mirror image profound meaning and speed profound meaning. He didn't have enough clones. If he could have more, he would be more powerful with the help of the speed profound meaning. If his clones were more real, maybe not even human sovereign realm warriors could kill him. He had just made a breakthrough in the speed profound meaning. It was unrealistic for him to make any progress in a short time. Lu Li focused on the mirror image profound meaning, and the number of clones increased. Half a month later, Lu Li had more than 30 clones, doubling the number. A month later, he had more than 20 clones. He had reached the limit of the number of clones controlled by the demon. In total, he could have 66 clones. Luli was satisfied. He was dazzled by so many clones. It was enough if he could not see through them. If he could, what was the point even if he had 1,000? Luli decided to rest for a couple of days. He was a bit disappointed to learn that Bai Qiuxue was in closed-door cultivation. He went to have a meal with Lu Feixue and played a game of chess. Luli didn't show many emotions, but as a woman, Lu Feixue was observant. She took a sip of tea and asked, "Is something bothering you?" Luli grinned and said, "Nothing. I just have some problems in cultivation." In terms of cultivation, Lu Feixue had no say. She was not very strong. She didn't ask any more questions. She set up the chess pieces and continued the game. Aha! Ha! Suddenly, a bell-like laughter rang out from outside. Following that, a figure flew out from one of the palaces, shooting straight into the sky. Luli walked out with curiosity. It was by Xiaoshuang. There was a 7-colored fate wheel under her feet. She was flying around in the sky. She was overjoyed, like a kid who had got a new toy. She is talented. Luli nodded. Bai Xiaoshuang had endless mystical materials, but she was not talented enough. No amount of mystical materials would help. Hunchback Tian tried more than 80 times without success. Of course, he didn't have the heaven serpent fruit, either. Bai Xiaoshuang looked down at Lu Li. Her delicate nose twitched. She flew around Lu Li's head with a proud look on her face. Lu Li smiled and said, "Bai Xiaoshuang, why are you flying in the sky with your skirt on? Your bottom is exposed." Pink. "Ah, Lu Li, you are doomed." Bai Xiaoshuang came back to her senses. She was so shy that she wanted to bury herself. Covering her face, she dashed into a side chamber in a blur and never came out again. Rustle, rustle, rustle. When Luli was about to go back and play chess with Lu Feixue, Madame Yin walked over and whispered to Luli, "Jiang Hong sent someone over. He said, Song Qi has come out from the dangerous place. He also killed dozens of scouts of the Jiang family. He is on the run, and his whereabouts are unknown." What Luli worried about the most had happened. Song Qi had come out and ran away as fast as he could. He would try his best to avoid being hunted down by the Jiang family and then come to the northern desert. Ask Jiang Qiling to send over a human sovereign realm warrior? This thought flashed across Lu Li's mind, but he quickly rejected it. Jiang Wu was unhappy with him. He might not interfere with the pursuit of Jiang family patriarchs when Song Qi was at the northern Central Plains. But to send over a human sovereign realm warrior from the Central Plains to the northern desert? This had crossed Jiang Wu's bottom line. What was more, Jiang Wu didn't want Jiang Qiling to repeat the same mistake. If Lu Li was killed by Song Qi, Jiang Wu would be happy. Also, Lu Li was not a man who would ask for help easily. He already felt humiliated when he went to see Jiang Qiling last time. Jiang Wu's attitude had aroused his pride. Let's do it. A bold idea came to Lu Li's mind. After a while, he made up his mind and shouted. His face became ferocious like a beast in a hopeless situation. P.S. Chapter 5 is up. It has been a week. The old monster's promise has been fulfilled. He was exhausted and his neck was about to break. Also, thank you to Chi Dian Genesis and QQ Reading for the tips from the readers yesterday. Moi. Chapter 438. The Pavilion of Delicacy sent out many scouts, and so did many other forces to search for Song Qi all over the world. Unfortunately, it was as if Song Qi had vanished from the world. He never showed up again. The scouts were all at the Soul Pond realm or the Fate Wheel realm. Even the best ones at the Pavilion of Delicacy were at the Eternal realm at best, and they were few in number. How strong was the psychic power of a human sovereign realm warrior? If Song Qi had hidden himself well and kept a low profile, it would have been impossible for the scouts to find him. They could find Song Qi because there were many scouts. Song Qi was being careless. Jiang Qiling was panicking. Song Qi was going to kill Lu Li. If he went out to sea, nobody would be able to find him. The next time he showed up would be at the northern desert, with Lu Li. Jiang Qiling went to make trouble begging several patriarchs to go to the northern desert to protect Luli. But it was ridiculous. Patriarchs of the Pavilion of Delicacy, how honorable they were, had to protect an abandoned disciple of the Lu family, a despot of the northern desert. This time, the patriarchs of the Pavilion of Delicacy were determined. They wouldn't give in even if Jiang Qiling were to burn down their houses. What was more, Jiang Hua ordered secretly that nobody was allowed to go to the northern desert. Jiang Qiling was enraged. She left the island of Delicacy and wanted to go to the northern desert by herself. The Jiang family would be worried if she went. After all, the Pavilion of Delicacy had killed several patriarchs of the Song family. As long as Jiang Qiling went to the northern desert, there would be human sovereign realm warriors following her. However, as soon as Jiang Qiling left the island of Delicacy, she heard a noise behind her. Then a hand landed on the back of her head, knocked her out, and brought her back to the island of Delicacy. What was more, Jiang Hua drugged Jiang Qiling to make her sleep for a month or two. Jiang Hua asked the patriarchs to call back the scouts and let Song Qi go to the northern desert. Lu Li's identity was too sensitive. If he were not abandoned by the Lu family, Jiang Hua wouldn't have stopped him. Jiang Hua had no other way unless he wanted to become enemies with the Lu family. Becoming enemies with the Lu family would harm the Jiang family and the Pavilion of Delicacy. As the Pavilion Master, Jiang Hua could not let that happen. He had to watch Song Qi go to the northern desert. He knew very well that her heart would be broken again after Lu Li was killed by Song Qi, but it was better to get the pain over with. Before the relationship between Lu Li and Jiang Qiling started, Lu Li had to put an end to her. Once the scouts of the Linglong Pavilion withdrew, the scouts of the other families also withdrew. Song Qi, who had been hiding in the mountain carefully, heaved a sigh of relief. After confirming that the scouts had indeed retreated and that this was not a trap, Song Qi increased his speed. In just 6 days, they arrived at the seaside. Song Qi was not careless. He dived into the sea and walked underwater. He knew that there were many powerful sea beasts in this area, including a few beast kings, but he couldn't care less. Right now, the only thought in his mind was to take revenge for the Song clansmen who were killed by the Blue Lion Palace. He wanted to take revenge for his wife, son, and daughter. He could not afford to offend the Lu family, and he was not sure that he could defeat the Palace of Blue Lions. Lu Li, the initiator of all this, did not have a human sovereign realm warrior with him. Naturally, he wouldn't give up such an opportunity. Even if he had to die a horrible death, he wouldn't hesitate. The northern desert was not peaceful lately. Nobody knew when, but there was a rumor that Lu Li had offended a big shot of the Central Plains. That big shot was crossing the sea to kill Lu Li. Such a big event would spread fast. In just a couple of days, the entire northern desert had heard of it. What Madame Yin and Yu Huashan did next made the northern desert even more panicked. Yu Huashan sent out people to arrest people. Anyone who dared to spread the rumor would be sent to jail. If the circumstances were serious, they would be killed on the spot. Madame Yin sent out a notice saying that it was just a rumor. She reassured the people of the northern desert. What was more strange was that Madame Yin said that Lu Li was studying the natural laws in the area of demons. She said that Lu Li was about to learn a horrifying, profound meaning and that he would be able to reach the human sovereign realm soon. By then, even if powerful warriors came to the northern desert, Lu Li could kill them easily. This was a blatant lie. This was what many people of the northern desert were thinking. There would be no smoke if there was no smoke. If there was no such thing, why would Yu Huashan go and arrest people? Madame Yan's notice was trying to cover things up. Lu Li learning the natural laws? Could he be as powerful as a human sovereign realm warrior? This made the people of the northern desert even more suspicious. Lu Li was only 17 years old and only at the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. No matter how powerful he was, he couldn't be as powerful as a human sovereign realm warrior. Then there was another rumor. Someone did see Lu Li fly into a tornado at the area of demons. Not only did he survive, but he could break the tornado and make it collapse. The rumor became more and more serious. Yu Huashan arrested many people, but he couldn't stop the rumor. Many people and families began to panic. Many small families that didn't have enough resources started to spread the rumor, which made the northern desert even more turbulent. Recently, even some kids believed that a human sovereign realm warrior was coming to the northern desert to kill Lu Li. Madame Yan's notice and the rumor that Lu Li was cultivating at the area of demons were all meant to reassure people. If there was nothing wrong, why would people be reassured? Why would they try to cover things up? It meant the rumor was true. The empire of godly prowess had just been established, and not even a year had passed. What was more, the Emperor Lu Li was not a powerful warrior. He relied on his subordinates to build the foundation. Therefore, people of the northern desert didn't have a strong sense of unity. Many average people were in a constant state of anxiety. They were afraid that the northern desert that had just regained its peace would go into war again, and people would be plunged into misery and suffering. Yu Huashan had suppressed the rumor, and nobody dared to talk about it on the surface. That being said, there were surging undercurrents. The small families that had their resources seized were eager to see the world in chaos, so they spread the rumor. The effect was great. In just over a dozen days, almost everyone at the northern desert knew about it. There were two things that could be confirmed. First, there was indeed a powerful warrior coming to the northern desert. Second, Lu Li was at the area of demons. Scouts of many families had sensed it. As a matter of fact, Lu Li had arranged these two things on purpose. It was Madame Yan and Yu Huashan who did it. Lu Li wanted the entire northern desert to know about this. Without his consent and Madame Yan's arrangement, how could the rumors spread so fast? Lu Li had his reasons for doing this. Since things could not be avoided, then he would have to fight with Song Qi. But this time, Lu Li chose to fight with wits. He didn't have the ability to fight with brute force. He chose to kill Song Qi with schemes, killing with a borrowed knife. The one he wanted to borrow was sharp. The clan leader of the stellar race at the human sovereign realm. All the arrangements were to lure Song Qi to the deserted world, and then fight with the clan leader of the stellar race. Lu Li would be the one to reap the benefits. Only a human sovereign realm warrior could kill a human sovereign realm warrior. No matter how many noble Lord Realm warriors there were, they would all die when facing a human sovereign realm warrior. Lu Li didn't have any human sovereign realm warriors on his side, so he had to use one to kill Song Qi. There was no doubt that the clan leader of the stellar race was a good weapon. That being said, it was not easy to kill with a borrowed knife. One wrong move, and everyone would be killed by Song Qi. Lu Li and Madame Yan discussed for a long time before they came to a decision. The rumor was only part of the plan. Madame Yan's nickname was Black Widow. She was not good at fighting or scheming, but she was good at scheming. Lu Li had gone to the area of demons, and Madame Yan had to take care of the rest. Chapter 439. Song Qi was fast. He traveled under the sea as fast as he could without any rest. But he couldn't stand it any longer, so he took a nap on a small island for a couple of hours. He knew he must seize every second and kill Lu Li before he could escape. What if the Pavilion of Delicacy sent out human sovereign realm warriors to protect Lu Li? What was more, there were too many Xian beasts in the sea. Many times, Song Qi would be woken up by the qi and energy of Xian beasts not long after he slept on the island. He had to kill the Xian beasts and continue on his way. It would take at least 2 to 3 months to cross the sea by regular iron-armored ships. However, Song Qi only spent 26 days to cross the sea. He was fast, and he was determined to kill Lu Li. He wore a mask that was more advanced than the illusion's mask. It could cover up all his qi and energy and change his looks at any time. It was because of the mask that he could move under the nose of so many scouts of the northern central plains. Lu Li and Madame Yan had many scouts by the lake, but none of them could find Song Qi. Song Qi's psychic power was too strong. Song Qi didn't kill any scouts because that would alert the enemy. He chose to sneak into the northern desert secretly. He wanted to find out Lu Li's whereabouts and the situation at the northern desert so that he could kill Lu Li in one strike. He went into a city and wandered around in a tavern. Through his powerful psychic power, he obtained a lot of information. Lu Li was the emperor of the northern desert. He had many noble Lord Realm warriors working for him, but none of them were at the human sovereign realm. The royal city of the Empire of Godly Prowess was at the Ling Empress City, but Lu Li was at the area of demons. There was a rumor of the northern desert that a mysterious, powerful warrior was coming to the northern desert to kill Lu Li. Lu Li was learning the profound meaning, and his abilities were close to that of the human sovereign realm. Yu Huashun was hunting down those who spread the rumor. This news made Song Qi skeptical. After all, Song Qi was a family patriarch of a sixth-rank family. He wouldn't believe a few people. He left the city quickly and went to a region city. He had a powerful mask that could cover up his human sovereign realm qi and energy. He disguised himself as a warrior and went into the city to gather more information. The information was the same. He could get it easily. Lu Li and Madame Yan's plan made the entire northern desert know about it. Soon, Song Qi realized that the northern desert knew he was coming, and Lu Li was at the area of demons. Song Qi was bewildered in his heart. Since Lu Li knew he was coming, why didn't he run? And he even appeared in the lake of demons in broad daylight. Was he waiting for death? Song Qi made up his mind after a short moment of consideration. He would go to the Ling Empress City first and capture several powerful subordinates and relatives of Lu Li. He would interrogate them to find out where Lu Li was and then take action. Song Qi teleported openly. However, he didn't dare to teleport to the Ling Empress City. Instead, he teleported to a nearby city. After arriving at this big city, Song Qi did not immediately head to the Ling Empress City. Instead, he spread out his spiritual will in the inn and started to gather information. In the Domain Lord's manor of this city, the Domain Lord was actually discussing him with a few warriors. I heard a rumor that the Ling Long Pavilion intends to send a human sovereign to help us kill Song Qi. The Hall of Elders is having a meeting right now. I guess the human sovereign of the Pavilion of Delicacy will come in 4 or 5 days. All right. As long as the Run Huang of the Pavilion of Delicacy arrives, Song Qi will be courting death if he dares to come to us. Of course, Miss Jiang has a very good relationship with the Great Emperor. How could she let the Great Emperor fall into danger? Song Qi didn't hear the rest of the conversation. His face was clouded over. If the Pavilion of Delicacy really sent a human sovereign realm warrior, then he would have no chance to kill Lu Li. Let's go. He left the city and rushed toward the Ling Empress City. It was close to the Ling Empress City. In just an hour, he had arrived. However, the Ling Empress City was sealed off and a simple shield was activated to cover the city. If he wanted to go in, he would have to break the shield. It would be easy for him to do that. But if Lu Li was not in the city, he would alert the enemy. The northern desert was Lu Li's territory. Once Lu Li was hiding in a small world, how could Song Qi kill him? Therefore, Song Qi had to use his psychic power to sneak into the Ling Empress City and start a secret investigation. His spiritual force was really strong. It easily penetrated the barrier, and the barrier did not react at all. What surprised Song Qi was there was no powerful warrior in the entire Ling Empress City, not even one at the Eternal Realm. The Imperial Palace was empty except for some maids and servants. Was there a conspiracy? Or did they all run away? Song Qi's eyes flickered. He kept on investigating and made sure that the human sovereign realm warrior from the Pavilion of Delicacy was coming. The warriors stationed at the teleportation formation had been discussing this in a low voice. Their leader also told them that if someone from the Central Plains was teleported over, they must be respectful because that person was a big shot from the Pavilion of Delicacy. Song Qi was panicking. Once the human sovereign realm warrior from the Pavilion of Delicacy came, it would be hard for him to kill Lu Li. But he didn't know where Lu Li was. There was no big shot in the city. Where could he find Lu Li? In the end, Song Qi had to go to the area of demons. He didn't know if the Pavilion of Delicacy would send a human sovereign realm warrior over. He didn't dare to take the risk. He had to go to the area of demons as soon as possible to find out the situation before making a decision. He didn't fly. Instead, he took the teleportation formation to the Thousand Island Lake. If he flew at full speed, he would make too much noise and attract attention. He was confident that nobody could see through his mask except for human sovereign realm warriors, who would notice him if he disguised himself as a warrior of the Fate Wheel realm. He teleported to the Heaven Prison City and kept a low profile. Every time he teleported, he would pay Xian crystals and disguise himself as a warrior of the Chamber of Commerce. Nobody noticed him. Have you heard? The Emperor was at the area of demons last night. He cracked the tornado with one move. I think he has learned a profound meaning. Wow, that is impressive. The Emperor is only 17 years old, and he has learned a profound meaning. I think his abilities are comparable to human sovereign realm warriors. Don't say too much about this. If General Yu's people know, something bad will happen. Song Chi learned about this as soon as he arrived at the Heaven Prison City. Not just a few people were talking about it. He could hear many people talking about it with his psychic power. Area of demons? Okay. A glint of killing intent rose in Song Chi's eyes. He left the city quietly. Then he found a deserted place and dived into the lake, sneaking toward the lake of demons. As soon as Song Chi left the city, Du Zheng walked out from the Heaven Punishing Auction House. He looked at the city gate indifferently and said with a cold smile, "Okay, the fish has taken the bait. Lu Li, the rest is up to you." Du Zheng crushed a jade talisman. He didn't go over to check. He didn't know what Lu Li's plan was for. All he knew was that Lu Li could create miracles many times. Maybe Song Chi wouldn't come back this time. As for how Du Zheng knew it was Song Chi, it was simple. Chapter 440. Above the area of demons, Lu Li was in the tornado. He flew along the tornado on his fate wheel. There were many scouts hiding nearby, but they were well hidden. There was an iron-armored ship near the tornado with only one person on board, Yi Cha. The other patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race wanted to come as well, but Lu Li refused. Yi Cha was as fast as a human sovereign realm warrior, and the other patriarchs were slower. They would only be courting death if they came. Lu Li had been studying profound meanings these days. He sat on the fate wheel with his legs crossed, like a monk in meditation. He had several jade talismans in his hand. At that moment, one of them broke. He opened his eyes and looked at the jade talisman, and then at Yi Cha on the iron-armored ship. Being stared at by Lu Li, Yi Cha tensed up. He used psychic power to check the lake area at once. Whoosh! After a while, he felt worried. He flew down and dashed into the lake. Then he sat in the lake with his legs crossed and tried to sense the surroundings. His psychic power was not as strong as Song Chi's. When Song Chi locked onto him, Yi Cha might not be able to sense Song Chi yet, but Yi Cha could sense the ripples in the lake. Song Chi would definitely come down from the lake. Yi Cha would know as soon as there were any unusual movements in the lake. Lu Li was nervous as well. A human sovereign realm warrior sneaking over could kill him and Yi Cha in an instant. Lu Li closed his eyes again. This time, he was not trying to study profound meanings. He was trying to sense the ripples and abnormalities in the space around him. He used himself as bait to lure Song Chi into the small world. If he couldn't enter in time and was enveloped by Song Chi's force field, then everything would be over. Time moved on. The Heaven Prison City was not far away from the area of demons. Song Chi was fast, but he slowed down as he got closer to the area of demons. He used psychic power to search for Lu Li. Gradually, he was getting closer and closer to the tornado. Finally, he scanned over Yi Cha with psychic power and then saw Lu Li, who was sitting in the tornado with his legs crossed. Lu Li, a glint of coldness rose in Song Chi's eyes. Killing intent and horrifying chi spread out from him. His psychic power was so strong that he could detect Lu Li even with the illusion's mask. He had seen Lu Li's portrait, and he was sure that Lu Li was not wearing a mask. Buzz! Yi Cha and Lu Li opened their eyes almost at the same time. Yi Cha sensed the unusual movement in the water, and Lu Li sensed a hint of killing intent. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, the two of them rushed into the lake. Lu Li crushed a jade talisman in his hand. The scouts lurking around started to move. All of them dashed into the water. 3 Eternal Realm warriors were aiming at Song Chi in the lake. Still want to escape? Song-Chi's expression turned cold. He could no longer suppress his killing intent, and it was released violently. He wouldn't care even if there were human sovereign realm warriors ambushing him. He would kill Lu Li even at the cost of his life. Xiao, the warriors lying in ambush nearby, shot out their Xian energy attacks one after another. 3 Eternal Realm warriors even released their bloodline divine skills. One of the Yu family elders released a fire dragon that shot straight at Song-Chi. Scram! Song-Chi angrily waved his hand and shot out a few beams of dark force, turning a few scouts into minced meat. With a glare, an invisible force field appeared and froze the 3 Eternal Realm warriors in the water. Song-Chi waved his hand again, and the 3 Eternal Realm warriors burst into blood mist as well. There were still some scouts coming over, but Song-Chi didn't have time to worry about them. Yicha and Lu Li had reached the bottom of the lake towards a huge whirlpool. Song-Chi checked with his psychic power. The whirlpool was bottomless, and it might be connected to another small world. How could he let them escape? Song-Chi's momentum was at its peak, and he was moving at the top of his speed. In the blink of an eye, he was close to the whirlpool. At the same time, Lu Li and Yicha had rushed into the whirlpool and disappeared from Song-Chi's psychic power. Where else can we go? Song-Chi sneered and dashed toward the whirlpool. Lu Li and the others had just gone in, so they couldn't destroy the tunnel. Song-Chi didn't mind being trapped in the small world for the rest of his life if he could kill Lu Li. With a flash of white light, Song-Chi suddenly felt he was surrounded by green mist. All he could see was green smoke. He couldn't see anything clearly. When he used psychic power to check, he realized he could only reach as far as 300 feet. He was surrounded by green mist. He took a deep breath and felt something was wrong. Poison. Song-Chi's expressions changed. The poison didn't have much effect on him. The thing was, the poison could block psychic power. Lu Li and the others would take the chance to run away. The poison mist was actually a kind of formation bought from the Chamber of Commerce of Delicacy at the cost of 10 million Xian crystals. It was set up by Madame Yin so that Lu Li and Yicha would have enough time to get to the entrance of the deserted world. Otherwise, Lu Li, the bait, would become a dead fish. Lu Li and Yicha were rushing toward the tunnel at full speed. They believed that Song-Chi would find it soon and come back. Song-Chi rushed out of the poison mist and used psychic power to check. But he didn't see Yicha or Lu Li. He had to fly around randomly and look around. Soon, he found a warrior of the Bai family. Naturally, Lu Li had kept this warrior alive on purpose. With a flash, Song-Chi grabbed the man's neck and started interrogating him. The interrogation went well. The warrior confessed everything. He said that this was a world of green dwarfs, and it was not a large one. There was a passage to another small world, and there were several places where people could hide. Song-Chi killed the warrior after he finished his interrogation. Then he rushed toward the entrance of the deserted world as fast as he could. He believed that unless Lu Li was an idiot, he wouldn't stay in this small world. This place was too small to hide for long. As he expected, when he arrived at the entrance of the deserted world, he happened to notice the fluctuation of the teleportation formation down there. Lu Li and Yicha had just disappeared. There were 2 more warriors guarding here. They were trying to activate the 2 formations in a hurry. Swish, swish. After killing the 2 of them, Song-Chi rushed into the teleportation restriction. What upset him happened again. As soon as he entered the deserted world, he found that he was still surrounded by miasma, which blocked his psychic power. When he flew out and checked with psychic power, he lost sight of Lu Li and Yicha again. He was surrounded by a strange race, all of them hag race. Whoosh whoosh, skulls flew over. Many of the hag race's eyes glowed as they tried to charm Song-Chi. Song-Chi was enraged and began a bloody massacre. He didn't do anything else. He just waved his hands, and many of the hag race were blasted into dust. The hag race was scared, and they fled to all directions. Song-Chi didn't go after them. He caught a flying hag and asked about Lu Li's whereabouts and the situation in the deserted world. The flying hag spoke in the ancient language. Song-Chi was from the Central Plains, and the Song family had a history of thousands of years, so he knew something about the ancient language. He learned from the flying hag that Lu Li, the devil, was close to a large race here, the stellar race. Lu Li must have gone to the stellar race to seek refuge. The hag race said that Lu Li was a devil because hag race said that Lu Li had killed many of their people and that he was their sworn enemy. Song Chi didn't think too much into it. As far as he could tell, how big could a large race in a small world be? They wouldn't have many powerful warriors. Song Chi caught another hag and interrogated him. He got the same answer and asked for the direction of the stellar race. Then he went after them. After Song Chi left, by Qiu Shue and Qi Ke walked out from a mountain in the distance. They were relieved. Song Chi had successfully lured the stellar race to the deserted world. What happened next was out of their control. It was up to fate to see what would happen. P.S. I can't stand it anymore. Update as usual. 3 chapters a day and 4 on weekends. Update at 6 p.m. every day. Chapter 441. In the middle of the deserted world, the stellar race occupied the most treasured land, the stellar mountain. The spiritual chi in the mountain was rich. There were many mines at the foot of the mountain where many mystical materials could be excavated. A rare elixir grew on the peak of the mountain all year round. In the beginning, dozens of races had their eyes on the stellar mountain. The stellar mountain wasn't originally called the stellar mountain. It was occupied by another powerful race. As time went on, the races of the deserted world fought for resources. Only 18 of the dozens of races remained. The stellar race sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. Eventually, they became the biggest winner and occupied the stellar mountain. Later on, the Titan race tried to invade the stellar mountain several times. However, many powerful warriors of the stellar race could teleport, so they could not be killed. On the other hand, the stellar race could go to the rear of the Titan race and kill civilians of the Titan race. Therefore, the stellar race had become the king of the deserted world. If it weren't for the fact that the Titan race had human sovereign realm warriors, the stellar race would have unified the deserted world. In the wilderness, 2 people were flying fast. Lu Li and Yi Cha flew together, which was Yi Cha's request. If Song Chi caught up with them, Yi Cha could stall him for a while so that Lu Li could escape. They flew toward the stellar race in a straight line. Lu Li didn't release his fate wheel, and Yi Cha carried him. Yi Cha was full of vigor along the way, which attracted the attention of many races. But he was so fast that many races didn't even have time to react before they disappeared into the distance. Yi Cha was doing this on purpose. He was trying to lure Song Chi over by leaking his whereabouts. If Song Chi didn't come after them, then their plan would be pointless. The entrance to the deserted world was 2 days' journey from the stellar race. That was if Yi Cha flew at the top of his speed. If he took an iron-armored ship, it would take him at least 10 days or half a month. Yi Cha didn't take a moment to rest. He flew at the top of his speed regardless of whether there were races or tribes in front of him. Whoosh! Half a day later, some strange people appeared in midair. Yi Cha and Lu Li's reckless flying had angered the major races of the deserted world. Powerful warriors of those races were here to stop them. 3 strange people were intercepting them. They were more than 3 feet tall, with 3 horns on their heads. They were covered in white hair, and their eyes were blood red. They looked more like 3 white hairs of blood apes. The white-haired man let out a shrill howl from afar, mumbling something that no one knew what he was saying. Yi Cha understood. He explained to Lu Li in a low voice, "They say this is the territory of the white-hair race, and they want us to get out." Lu Li thought about it. Seeing that the white-haired man didn't take action right away, Lu Li said to Yi Cha, "Tell them that we are friends of Hua, the clan leader of the stellar race. Hua has invited us to be his guests. We will pass by them and not do anything else." Yi Jia stopped in midair and explained to the white-hair race. His tone was very polite. An important figure from the white-hair race spoke again, expressing his disbelief. For the races here, humans were the worst enemy. Lu Li appeared to be a pure-blooded human. He could not be an honored guest of the stellar race. After Yi Cha finished, Lu Li added, Tell them that I am also of a special race called the Blood Race." Luli released Blood Claw on his arm. The White Hair race was hesitating. They were dependent on the Stellar Race. If they offended an honored guest of the clan leader of the Stellar Race, they would not be able to bear the consequences. Yicha was of the Cyan Phoenix race, which was easy to recognize. After a while, a white-haired man said that he could let them pass, but they had to keep an eye on them. Luli had no objection. They didn't want to make trouble here. They were just passing by. Yicha flew Luli in a straight line, with the 3 white-haired men following him. They didn't stop until they were out of the territory of the white-hair race. "Wait," Luli asked Yicha to stop. He told Yicha to keep an eye on Song-Chi, who was behind them. He told Yicha that there was a powerful human warrior following them here to take over the territory of the deserted world. The white-hair race should be careful. With that said, Yicha flew away with Luli. They didn't care whether the white-hair race would stop Song-Chi or not. They just wanted to say a few words. It would be best if they could stop Song-Chi. Along the way, they could enter the territories of strange races. Luli and the others used the same trick. They pretended that Yicha and Yicha were from strange races, not humans, and that they were honored guests of the Stellar Race. They were going to the Stellar Mountain. Every time, Yicha would make it clear that there was a powerful human warrior following them. As for whether the races would stop them or not, it would be up to fate. Bang, 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 Luli and Yicha's plan worked. An hour after they left the white-hair race, Song-Chi caught up with them. The white-hair race was on high alert. 3 noble Lord Realm warriors flew up at once, and some Eternal Realm warriors flew up as well. But Song-Chi was at the human sovereign realm, so the white-hair race didn't act rashly. They only asked why Song-Chi trespassed into the deserted world and what he was up to. Leave as soon as possible. Song-Chi was focused on killing Luli. The white-hair race wouldn't care. The white-hair race asked Luli in the ancient language if they were passing by. His tone was not pleasant. Needless to say, the result was that the 2 sides fought over a disagreement. The white-hair race suffered. The 3 noble Lord Realm warriors were killed by Song-Chi, and many of the Eternal Realm warriors were killed as well. Song-Chi captured one of the white-hair race and asked about Luli and Yicha. He learned that Luli and Yicha had just left, and they were honored guests of the Stellar Race. They were on their way to the Stellar Mountain. Song-Chi didn't stop or think too much after he got the information. He chased after Luli in anger. He was more certain that Luli was going to the Stellar Race to seek refuge. Song-Chi was enraged by what happened later. Along the way, he was intercepted by other races. He was interrogated several times, and they all stated that Luli was an honored guest of the Stellar Race. Song-Chi also learned that the Stellar Race had a human sovereign realm warrior. He was worried, but relieved at the same time. No wonder Luli wanted to escape here. Why did he want the protection of the Stellar Race? The Stellar Race had a human sovereign realm warrior. Song-Chi made up his mind. He would fight to the death, even if the Stellar Race had a human sovereign realm warrior. This was his only chance. The Pavilion of Delicacy would send another human sovereign realm warrior soon. If he couldn't kill Luli this time, he would have to die in this small world or at the northern desert. Song-Chi didn't ask any more questions. He flew to the Stellar Mountain as fast as he could. He killed all the strange races that stood in his way. What Song-Chi didn't know was, every time he started a fight, he would send out a message asking for help. In the distance, the alarm at the Stellar Mountain kept ringing. A human sovereign realm warrior was killing his way over with his sword pointed at the Stellar Mountain. Of course, another message was sent to the Stellar Mountain. It was said that 2 strange races were honored guests of the Stellar Race, and they were going to the Stellar Mountain as well. But the message was ignored by the Stellar Race. They didn't have the time to care about the honored guests. Chapter 442. The Stellar Mountain was large and steep. Nearby, there were also 12 peaks that stood evenly in the surroundings, like 12 generals surrounding a supreme emperor. Basically, the Stellar Race lived on the Stellar Mountain and the 12 mountains around it. There was a huge city on the Stellar Mountain and 12 other cities on the other 12 mountains. As the uncrowned king of the deserted world, The stellar race had been reproducing fast. At the moment, there were at least hundreds of thousands of people in the 13 cities. There were at least 1,000 powerful warriors that could teleport. If it were not for the fact that the number of human sovereign realm warriors was small and God of Meng could stall the stellar race, the deserted world would have been unified. 2 days later, at night, Lu Li and the others finally stepped into the territory of the stellar race. Lu Li took out the map to check and decided to take a detour. They were not honored guests of the stellar race. There must be scouts all over the territory of the stellar race right now. If they dashed in, the clan leader of the stellar race would tear them apart. The two of them quickly flew to the left and found a mountain range. They hid in a hidden cave and waited quietly. They had done all they could and made all the arrangements. What came next was luck. If Song Chi could not arrive at the stellar mountain or see through their plan, Lu Li would have to wait for his death. Time moved on. Lu Li and Yi Cha were getting more and more nervous. Song Chi was faster than Yi Cha. He should have caught up with them by now. It had been more than 2 hours, and there was no sign of him. Yi Cha and Lu Li were worried. If Song Chi didn't come, then all their efforts would be in vain. Another 2 hours passed. They were getting restless. Yi Cha thought about it and said, "Young master, I will go and have a look." Lu Li nodded and said, "Be careful." Yi Cha flew out in a gust of wind. Lu Li hid in the cave alone. He had no psychic power, so he could not check. He had to close his eyes to sense the fluctuations in space. Squeak, squeak. An hour later, he heard a strange sound from his sleeve. He opened his eyes and looked into his sleeves in surprise. A small head poked out from Lu Li's sleeve and then jumped onto his shoulder in a white blur. It then intimately kissed Lu Li's face with its mouth. "Ha! Xiaobai, you're awake." Lu Li was overjoyed. Little White had been sleeping for a long time, and he missed it dearly. Little White was just as happy to see Lu Li. It jumped up and down on Lu Li's body, scratching him with its little paws. Whoosh! Not long afterward, there came a noise from outside. Lu Li asked Little White to go back and gave it some soul crystals. Little White began to chew on them happily. A shadow came into being in front of Lu Li. It was Yi Cha. Delighted, he shouted, "Let's go." Song Chi has already started fighting with the stellar race. I saw hundreds of dead bodies of the stellar race. Song Chi and the elites of the stellar race were fighting fiercely. I did not dare to get close. All right, Lu Li was invigorated. This fight was not only about his life, but also about Yi Cha by Qiushua, Ming Yu, and the others. One wrong step, and everyone would fall into a bottomless abyss. Song Chi is very powerful. Yi Cha frowned and said, "Song Chi is at the initial stage of the Ren Huang realm. The leader of the stellar race should be a Ren Huang as well. But I don't think the leader of the stellar race is a match for Song Chi." Why? Lu Li was confused. They were both at the initial stage of the human sovereign realm, and the stellar race had the ability to teleport. How could they not be a match for Song Chi? Right? Lu Li remembered something and yelled, "Is it the bloodline of wood origin? I once fought with people from the Song family. The Song family has a wood origin bloodline that can release a sky full of purple vines to trap their enemies." Yes. Yi Cha nodded and said, "I watched from the distance and saw the purple vines all over the sky. Many of the stellar race were trapped and could not teleport. I think the vines can bind space or seal Xian energy. Otherwise, they would have been able to teleport. I checked dozens of bodies of the stellar race. They were all dried up as if their life essence had been sucked away." That is right. Lu Li thought about it and said, "The bloodline skill of the Song family can suck away the life essence of warriors." Yu Huaxin was almost sucked dry. The teleportation of the stellar race was amazing. Lu Li had thought that the stellar race clan leader could kill Song Chi easily or make both sides suffer. It seemed that things were beyond Lu Li and Yi Cha's expectations. The bloodline of wood origin could restrain teleportation. If the stellar race clan leader was killed by Song Chi, then the plan would be pointless. Lu Li thought about it for the time, for half an incense stick to burn before he said, "Clan leader Yi, go to the hag race and bring Qiushu out. If my jade talisman of life is broken, destroy the passageway at once." Eh. Yicha paused for a second before he understood and said, Saint Lord, let's go out together. If we destroy the passageway, we will be safe no matter who wins the fight between Song Chi and the Stellar Race clan leader. We will not be safe. Lu Li shook his head and said, There must be a passageway to the deserted world. How can there be only one passageway in such a big world? If we destroy the passageway and Song Chi is still alive, he will go back to the northern desert sooner or later. Actually, Lu Li had thought about destroying the passageway, and Madame Yin mentioned it as well. But Lu Li didn't agree. It was clear that Song Chi wanted him dead. If Song Chi didn't die this time, then nobody in the deserted world could stop him. Sooner or later, he could go back to the northern desert and continue his killing spree. Next time, he wouldn't be so lucky. On the other hand, if Lu Li was killed by Song Chi and the passageway was destroyed, then Song Chi would never go back to the northern desert. After all, he had his revenge, and he had to go all the way to the northern desert. What if he was killed by the powerful warriors of the Pavilion of Delicacy? Lu Li wanted to kill the Stellar Race clan leader and Song Chi. This time, he was not only borrowing the Stellar Race clan leader, but also Song Chi. Therefore, Lu Li wanted to take the risk and find a chance. When the two of them were injured, Lu Li would find a chance to kill them both. If he could kill the two of them, not only would the crisis be over, the deserted world would be within his reach. Of course, as tempting as the reward was, the risk was proportional. One wrong move, and Lu Li would be turned into ashes. No, Yicha shook his head and said with determination, If we die together. Saint Lord, you don't have psychic power. Song Chi will notice you before you can get close. You cannot do it alone. Lu Li thought it made sense. Still, he shook his head and said, What about Xiao? What if we fail? Song Chi will go back to the northern desert through the passageway. That'll be a bloodbath. No. Yicha shook his head and said, Song Chi is walking into our trap step by step. He is afraid of the human sovereign realm warriors of the Pavilion of Delicacy. Even if we die, he will leave immediately and run back to the Central Plains. You are his main target. He will not waste time to kill others. Let's take the risk. Saint Lord, maybe we can win. Okay. Lu Li's eyes glowed coldly. He made up his mind and no longer hesitated. Let's go. Chapter 443. The Stellar Mountain was bustling with activity. Almost all the powerful warriors of the Stellar Race had come out. The ordinary citizens were also mobilized, and the experts of the nearby large clans were also urgently mobilized. The battlefield was 30 miles to the south of the 12 Mountains. It was a huge mountain with at least thousands of Stellar Race warriors. In the sky, the clan leader of the Stellar Race, Hua, was fighting against Song Chi with a group of warriors. Hua was flashing around in midair while Song Chi was entangled by purple vines. There were more than a dozen powerful warriors of the Stellar Race, and some from other races. They were attacking the purple vines with their own means. The Stellar Race was similar to humans in appearance and body shape, but there was a vertical mark between their eyebrows. It felt like it had 3 eyes. It was because of this vertical scar that the Stellar Race had the ability to teleport. The Stellar Race cultivated Xian energy and used weapons. The clan leader and 2 patriarchs of the Stellar Race had learned profound meanings. That being said, the 2 patriarchs' profound meanings were of low levels and could not enhance their abilities by much. Hua had been holding back because Song Chi gave him a sense of danger. He didn't dare to take any rash actions. He asked the other powerful warriors of the Stellar Race to find out more about Song Chi. Admittedly, the Wood origin bloodline was powerful. Not only could it attack and trap people, it could also be used for defense. At the moment, Song Chi was entangling himself in layer after layer of vines. No matter how many people were attacking, they could not break through the vines and reach Song Chi. Even if the vines were torn apart, Song Chi could make more. What was more, Song Chi's vines seemed to be able to extend endlessly. Hundreds of vines were reaching down, entangling dozens of stellar race warriors. Once they were entangled, the fate of the average stellar race would be sealed. The vines glowed in purple, and they would be unable to use Xian energy. The demon-trapping chains of the Lu family had the same effect. Many of the stellar race could teleport, but without Xian energy, there was nothing they could do. They could only watch as their vitality was sucked away. "Give me Lu Li, or I will wipe out the stellar mountain." Song Qi's voice was filled with killing intent. He was using the ancient language, but it was not standard. Hua and the other stellar race warriors were confused. They were enraged to see dozens of stellar race warriors screaming in pain and then being thrown out as dried corpses. Qi, more than a dozen patriarchs of the star race took action. They did not dare to get close to the vines, but they shot out Xian force attacks at the vines from all directions. Hua finally made his move. A huge black saber appeared in his hand. The saber shone brightly, giving off a powerful aura. It was a Saint-class weapon. He swung his long saber down, and a shocking saber light tore through the sky, causing cracks to appear in the space. The saber light flashed with golden light, and it was obvious that it contained the power of metal. Its destructive power was astonishing. Hua had comprehended a fourth-rank ultimacy of the Gold Series, but he did not take out his saber. Now that dozens of his clansmen had died, he could no longer sit still. As for the Lu Li that Song Qi mentioned, he didn't understand at all, and he wouldn't think too much about it. Back then, the Starry Sky race was also slaughtered and almost wiped out by the human race. There was an irreconcilable hatred between them. Now that Song Qi had killed so many members of the stellar race, he could not care less about anything else. He had to kill Song Qi first. Boom, boom, boom. Hua's move was clearly more powerful than the others. The other patriarchs of the stellar race and the powerful warriors of the special races could only cut off more than 10 layers of vines at best. Hua's move, on the other hand, cut through the layers of vines easily. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 layers of vines had been cut off. Unfortunately, Song Qi had already made 40 or 50 layers of vines, but the energy of the saber light was depleted soon. Keep attacking. Aim at one spot and kill him. Hua was cheered up. As long as they could cut off the vines, they could kill Song Qi easily with so many of them. He kept on attacking. The patriarchs of the stellar race gathered together and attacked at one spot. Boom, boom, boom. Layers of vines were torn apart, and the sky was filled with pieces of vines. Song Qi's speed of making vines could not keep up with the other's speed. Okay. The patriarchs of the stellar race were getting more and more excited. They moved closer to Song Qi, trying to break the vines so that Hua could kill Song Qi in one move. Right at that moment, Song Qi snorted. Seeing that the stellar race didn't do anything, Song Qi thought Hua had made up his mind to protect Lu Li. Song Qi flew into a rage. An invisible qi and energy spread out, and the space within a radius of more than 3,000 feet froze. Song Qi had activated the force field that only human sovereign realm warriors had. Force field was a miraculous thing. It was similar to a profound meaning of space, which could confine space. Warriors at the initial stage of a human sovereign realm could confine the space within a radius of more than 3,000 feet. Nobody below the human sovereign realm could move unless there was a warrior of the noble lord realm who was proficient in profound meaning of space. Warriors at the Black Tortoise Sea and Soul Pond were like children. Warriors at the Fate Wheel realm were like teenagers. Warriors at the Noble Lord realm were like youths. Warriors at the Human Sovereign realm were like adults. Human Sovereign realm warriors were the rulers of humans. Noble lords were just regular dukes. How could noble lords resist the will of a human sovereign realm warrior? Force field was the most horrifying thing about a human sovereign realm warrior. As soon as Song Qi released his force field, the more than a dozen patriarchs of the stellar race and some other races were all confined. How dare you? Hua was enraged and frightened at the same time. Those patriarchs were more than 3,000 feet away from Song Qi. Because they were having such a good time, as the number of vines decreased, the distance between them was shortened. Shang-Chi and Hua were within 3,000 feet. Swish, swish, vines flew out and entangled the patriarchs of the stellar race. Suppressed by the force field, they could not teleport away. They could only watch helplessly as they were entangled. Whoosh! Hua took action. Many rays of sword light shot out. At the same time, he also activated his force field to slow down the speed of the vines and save the patriarchs of the stellar race. The speed of the vines was indeed slowed down. However, there were too many of them. Shang-Chi kept on shooting out vines to pull the patriarchs toward him. Hua himself was slowed down in Shang-Chi's force field as well. Seeing the elders being pulled towards Shang-Chi one by one, Hua panicked. Those patriarchs were the backbone of the stellar race. Whether they could reach the human sovereign realm or not would depend on them. If all of them died, the stellar race would be doomed. There were too many vines. What was more, those patriarchs could not get out of the force field. Even if he could cut the vines and save some patriarchs, so what? Soon, they would be entangled again. A glint of ruthlessness rose in Hua's eyes. He decided to risk his life. The only way to save the patriarchs was to kill Shang-Chi. Human die. He turned into a gust of wind and dashed toward the vines. Instead of shooting out rays of sword light, he hacked at the vines with his saber. The power of the saber light formed by dark force was limited. If he wanted to unleash the full power of the profound meaning of gold, he had to fight hand-to-hand. Saint-level Xian artifact could only show its power by hacking. Boy, as expected, he dashed into the vines and hacked at them casually with his saint-level saber. Those tough vines were cut down as easily as ordinary vines. Hua swung his saber at Shang-Chi with unstoppable force. Nice! Chapter 444. Bang, 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 the vines in the sky were broken into pieces. Every time Hua swung his battle sword, the void was torn apart. Hua was unstoppable. Countless vines tried to entangle him, but could not get close to him. His divine weapon glowed brightly, and a black air current flowed around it. A strange aura was emitting from it. It was terrifying. Shang-Chi was surrounded by more than 10 layers of vines. In less than a minute, Hua had destroyed more than 30 layers. His murderous intent was locked on his Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi had already killed 7 or 8 patriarchs of the stellar race. He had also killed several experts from other races. He did not dare to continue anymore. Hua was about to attack. He retreated in a flash and controlled more vines to form a defensive layer in front of him. His vines were not endless. They needed to absorb a martial artist's life force to condense. Along the way, he had killed many members of the stellar race and absorbed a lot of life force. That was why he could release the vines for a few hours without using his own life force. He retreated quickly and continued to release vines to block Hua. When he felt that there was no more danger, he started to deal with the remaining elders of the stellar race. What's more, he released many vines and swept them downwards. They entangled the members of the stellar race and then killed them, absorbing their life force. Due to the difference in cultivation level, his vines were absorbing the life force at a terrifying speed. The elders of the stellar race might be able to hold on for a while, but the members of the stellar race would turn into jerky in a few breaths' time. Die, die, die. Hua was going crazy. He watched as the members of the stellar race were killed and turned into jerky. Yet he could not get close to Shang-Chi. He was getting more and more furious. These elders and the members of the stellar race were the hope of the stellar race. His own lifespan was about to run out. Once these people died and his lifespan ran out, the entire stellar race would be torn into pieces by the Titan race. They would be exterminated. Roar! The clan leader of the stellar race roared. Blood dripped down from the vertical scar on his forehead. The blood dripped down from his forehead and turned into a blood mist that enveloped his entire body. He was covered in blood. Clan leader, a patriarch of the starry sky race who was still alive, shouted in the ancient language. The others did not know, but the patriarch knew that this was the secret skill of Star. By burning his origin blood, he could temporarily increase his power. Beast sovereigns had origin blood essence. Powerful warriors could also refine origin blood essence. Some of the ancient races actually knew this kind of secret technique. Origin blood essence was a martial artist's purest and most powerful source of strength. It was used to protect one's life and put one's life on the line. Hua had refined 3 drops of Origin blood essence over the years, and he had used all of them. Even if they could win this battle, Hua would eventually die of old age. That was why the elder was howling in grief. Song Qi felt that something was amiss. After a few drops of blood appeared in the starry sky, his entire aura surged. He felt as though he had broken through from the early stage of the human sovereign realm to the middle stage. Although it was only a minor level of difference, when one reached the Renhuang plane, the difference in combat ability would be like heaven and earth. This was because human emperors had their own domains. The domains of those at the early stage of human emperor realm and those at the middle stage of human emperor realm were different. Not good. Song Qi sensed the space around him, and his expression changed again. Because the field had become stronger, his speed had decreased greatly. As a result, the speed of star transformation increased tremendously. Bang, bang, bang. Hua turned into a bloody man. He waved his divine weapon and swept everything in his way. All the vines in his way were easily torn apart. His speed increased tremendously. Like a sharp sword, he dashed toward Song Qi. Burning Origin blood essence? Song Qi knew about this secret skill. Unfortunately, he did not know how to use it. Only the ancient races knew about this secret skill. Seeing that Hua was approaching him rapidly, Song Qi realized that no matter how many vines he released, he would be able to tear them apart. A fierce look appeared in Song Qi's eyes. He was ready to give it his all. That's right. Before this, he had not used his full strength because he had never released his profound meaning. He had been hiding his strength for this moment. The ring on his hand flashed, and many black needles appeared. The black needles were glistening. It was obvious that they had been soaked in poison. Swish, swish, he threw all the needles out. However, he did not throw them at Hua. Instead, he swept them at the vines around him. The black needles entered the vines and disappeared. Buzz! His ring kept flashing. He took out more and more black needles and shot them into the vines. Clearly, his profound meaning had merged with his bloodline skill. Otherwise, the needles would not have disappeared into the vines. At the same time, the vines on the outside started dancing. The vines intertwined and formed a huge cage, trapping Hua and Song Qi. Die. Hua was about to reach Song Qi. His psychic power was locked on Song Qi. Of course, he knew what Song Qi was up to. But what other choice did he have? He had burned his Origin blood essence and could only hold on for the time for 3 incense sticks to burn. After that, he would be extremely weak. If he could not kill Song Qi now, the stellar race would be doomed. Bang! Hua finally broke the last few layers of vines. He flew out like a blood-red beast. He hacked at Song Qi's head, who was standing in the middle of the cage. Boom, boom, boom. He used all his strength in this attack. The entire space was shaking. As the saber hacked down, the space was torn apart. The sound of the saber cutting through the air was so loud that it could crack rocks and shatter eardrums. The saber glowed in gold. That was the power of gold that could tear apart some strong defenses. Ha. Suppressed by Hua's force field, Song Qi's speed was greatly reduced. He could no longer run away, but he was not worried at all. He sneered, waved his hand, and shouted, "Taste my profound meaning, violent storm." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All of a sudden, a gale sprang up in the cage. The force must have reached the level of a tornado. Within the cage made of vines, countless needles shot out, covering the entire space within the cage like a downpour. Song Qi's profound meaning was of the wind family, which was perfectly integrated with his bloodline. These thin needles were specially made by him. They were released with the help of the wind profound meaning. The materials of the thin needles were made from the materials of the sacred Great Xian artifact. The poison that was soaked in them was a very famous poison in the Central Plains. The profound meaning of the wind family could increase the speed of the needles to the extreme. Unless one was wearing a holy grade armor, the needles could be pierced through easily. Once the needles pierced into a warrior's body, the warrior would be paralyzed for 1 second and die after another. The cage of vines could stop the warrior from running away. The profound meaning of the wind family could increase the speed of the needles. Once the speed reached a horrifying level, the force of the attack would be impressive. The needles covered every inch of the cage. There was no way to dodge, and the warrior could only wait for death. This was the most powerful ability Shang-Chi had. Once, with this skill, he killed a human sovereign realm warrior and more than a dozen noble lord realm warriors from the Palace of Blue Lions. Once, the average human sovereign realm warriors at the northeast of the Central Plains were struck with terror. I am doomed. Hua felt hopeless. Unless he teleported away now, he would definitely die in the next second. Chapter 445. If he could teleport away, he might have another chance to attack. But nobody could predict the outcome. If he couldn't teleport away, he would die immediately. Go to hell. Let's die together. Hua made up his mind in an instant. He bellowed, and his body was on fire. A surge of qi and energy that frightened Shang-Chi spread out from his body. Lunatic, lunatic! Shang-Chi's pupils contracted as he shouted in rage. Terror was written all over his face. Hua Qi dashed away in a blur and stepped back as fast as he could. At the same time, he released many vines in front of him. The ancient races had many secret skills. There was one that many ancient races knew, and it was feared by the human race. The human race once suffered heavy losses. That was the skill of self-destruction. By burning one's own fate wheel or bead of life, the energy inside would burst out, creating a horrifying force that could tear apart all living beings nearby. Shang-Chi wouldn't mind if it were a noble Lord Realm warrior blowing himself up. But a human sovereign realm warrior would be horrifying. How many treasures would a human sovereign realm warrior need? How much energy would be contained in the bead of life of a human sovereign realm warrior? Unimaginable. Shang-Chi called Hua a lunatic because after Hua's self-destruction, Shang-Chi might not be able to survive. But at the very least, all the stellar race nearby would die. None of them could survive. Run. At the same time, Yicha, who was in a mountain in the distance, was taken aback. He knew the skill of self-destruction as well. He knew how horrifying a human sovereign realm warrior could be. Once, when the Cyan Phoenix race was destroyed, many powerful warriors of his race and the Mammoth race did the same. Within a radius of 30 miles, not even a blade of grass could survive. Whoosh! Yicha carried Lu Li and retreated as fast as he could. Suddenly, there came a ray of light in the distance. It was like the explosion of the sun. People could see it from a radius of more than 3,000 miles. Boom! Then came a deafening noise. At that moment, Lu Li and Yicha's eardrums were torn. They felt a sharp pain. They couldn't hear anything, and their heads were buzzing. Here we go. Yicha reacted quickly. Disregarding the pain in his eardrums, he grabbed Lu Li and rushed to a ravine ahead, pressing Lu Li under him. Boom, 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 a surge of shockwaves spread out. The hill behind Yicha and Lu Li was leveled to the ground, and the ground was scraped open. Even though Lu Li and Yi Jie were crouching in the ravine, they were still swept up and tumbled in midair. Their bodies were blown dozens of miles away. Bang, bang. In the end, the two of them were smashed into a large mountain. Both of them were covered in blood, and their skin was scratched in many places. Yi Jie's back was a bloody mess. Lu Li sat in a daze for a while and shook his head to get rid of the dust on his head. He wiped his face and looked back, but he was dumbfounded. What he saw was a huge basin, and it was extremely smooth. There were originally many mountains in the vicinity, but they were all gone now. There were no trees, no weeds, no rivers, only bare ground. Hiss, hiss. He took a few breaths of cold air. Was the self-destruction of a human emperor so terrifying? Fortunately, they were 100 miles away from the center of the explosion. Otherwise, the two of them would have been minced into pieces. Squeak, squeak, little White crawled out from Lu Li's sleeve. It was covered in dust as well. It shook its fur and looked around curiously. Let's go. Yi Jie was covered in dust. He took a healing pellet, grabbed Lu Li, and dashed toward the center of the explosion, not caring about the wound on his back. Lu Li came back to his senses. Huang must be dead, but he didn't know if Song-Chi was alive or not. If he was, this was the best chance. They must kill him at once. If Song-Chi escaped, they would be letting the tiger back to the mountain. Okay. Lu Li was cheered up. This was the best situation. He must kill Song-Chi this time. They rushed forward while Yi Jie used psychic power to check for Song-Chi. Even Yi Jie was shocked by the sight. Broken limbs were everywhere, and blood was raining down. Needless to say, all the stellar race on the ground were torn into pieces. None of them survived. Yi Jie sped up. He used psychic power to check and soon reached the center of the explosion. But he couldn't find Song-Chi. Let's split up. Lu Li was getting impatient. Song-Chi must be badly injured, even if he was not dead. This was a chance that could not be missed. Lu Li released his fate wheel and flew to the left and right with Yi Jie. Yi Jie was not worried. After all, even if Song-Chi could survive the explosion, he couldn't kill Lu Li. Lu Li flew to the right. Without psychic power, he had to rely on his eyes. It was easy to find Song-Chi. He just had to see if there was an intact body. The stellar race was weak, and they couldn't leave an intact body. Boom, boom. Lu Li had just flown for several miles when he heard some noises from Yi Jie. A glint of coldness rose in Lu Li's eyes. He flew over on his fate wheel as fast as he could. He is not dead yet. When he was closer, he saw that Yi Jie was attacking the ground. There was a man on the ground surrounded by layers of vines, blocking Yi Jie's attacks. More vines were coming out, entangling with each other to form a layer of defense, wrapping Song-Chi up. Lu Li exclaimed to himself. Song-Chi was so strong that he could survive such an explosion. Saint Lord, don't come over. Song-Chi is badly injured. I can kill him alone. Yi Jie roared angrily and released space, splitting power Upanishad. Giant gold claws slapped down and broke the vines layer by layer. Lu Li was relieved. The vines were coming out slowly. Yi Jie's profound meaning could tear the vines apart. It wouldn't be long before he could tear Song-Chi apart. A weak voice came from within the vine, and then an invisible ripple radiated out and froze Yi Jie in midair. Whoosh! Following that, dozens of vines shot out frantically, wrapped around Yi Jie, and pulled him down. Song-Chi sneered again. You are only at the noble lord realm, and you dare to talk big. I can kill you easily even if I have to die. Yi Jie. Lu Li was taken aback. The vines could suck away life energy. If Lu Li didn't do anything, Yi Jie would turn into a mummy soon. Powerful. Human sovereign realm warriors are too powerful. Lu Li murmured in shock. He could tell from Song-Chi's voice that he was badly injured. But Lu Li didn't expect that Song-Chi could take down Yi Jie. Let's do it. He could not watch Yi Jie die without saving him. What was more, if he couldn't kill Song-Chi this time, he wouldn't have another chance. He had to fight to the death. Whoosh! Lu Li released burning blood skill. A huge saber appeared in his hand, and his fate wheel spun. Then, he generated clones. There were 66 of them at once. Lu Li dashed down. He didn't know if clones would be of any use at the moment. But he wanted to fight with all his strength, even if it meant he would be smashed to pieces. Ha! 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 You don't want to go to heaven. Instead, you break into hell. Chapter 446. Lu Li was entangled by the vines, but he did not fight back. He could tell that some kind of energy was slipping away from him as the vines glowed in purple. He was getting weaker as well. Even so, he did not make a move. He knew that he only had one chance. If he missed it, both he and Yi Cha would die. Human sovereign realm warriors had force field. Once it was released, Lu Li would not be able to move. Song-Chi must be very weak at the moment, so the force field was deactivated. Lu Li was dragged into the vines quickly. This was a chance for him. Lu Li's eyes grew colder. Under the threat of life and death, his muscles were trembling. Yi Cha checked with psychic power. He seemed to have understood Lu Li's intention. Yi Cha's body suddenly twisted. Two golden hooks appeared in her hands, and she slashed at the vines. Crack. Maybe it was because Song-Chi was too weak that the vines were not as sturdy, or maybe the golden hooks were too strong. Either way, several vines were cut off. Go to hell, Yi Jie roared. Her two hooks swung towards Song-Chi's body, cutting down the vines one by one. Song-Chi snorted. He used psychic power to check on Lu Li. He took out some vines and shot them toward Yi Cha's back quietly. They entangled Yi Cha's legs and hands so that he could not move. Okay, now's the time. Lu Li's eyes glowed. Yi Cha had created a chance for him. Lu Li was pulled down and was only 30 feet away from Song-Chi. Even though there were 7 or 8 layers of vines between them, Lu Li was confident. Blood Claw, he roared, and this roar used the Dragon Roar divine skill. It shook the heavens and the earth, causing Song-Chi, who was in the vine, to spit out blood. Song-Chi was seriously injured. He was covered in blood. One of his legs and one of his hands were gone. His bones were exposed in many places. He was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed, unable to move. But as long as he was alive, he was still a human sovereign realm warrior. Song-Chi wanted to kill Yi Cha as soon as possible. However, Lu Li's roar made his blood boil. Blood was coming out from many places and his ears were ringing. He suddenly turned to Lu Li and used psychic power to check. He sensed a silver claw. Those claws were so sharp that they turned the vines into powder with a casual sweep. They were as sharp as Hua after he burned his origin blood. Bang, bang, bang. Lu Li used the speed profound meaning. His fate wool was entangled, and he could not move at all. He could reach the peak of the imperishable realm just by relying on the speed truth. He was only 3 to 4 meters away from Song-Chi. The vines in front of him could not stop him for even a moment. So in just a breath's time, he had already rushed in front of Song-Chi. Song-Chi's soul shuddered when he saw a silver claw rapidly enlarging in front of him. He knew very well that if he was hit by the claw, his head would instantly explode. At the moment of life and death, Song-Chi's potential was stimulated. Even if he was seriously injured and on the verge of death, one should not forget that he was the human emperor. How fast was the reaction speed of a human emperor? When Lu Li's claw was only 1 foot away from Song-Chi's face, Song-Chi activated his force field. An invisible ripple spread out, and the entire space froze once again. Blood came out from Song-Chi's mouth. Forcefully activating force field twice had worsened his injuries. SH*T, SH*T, SH*T. Lu Li was almost face-to-face with Song-Chi, who was sitting with his legs crossed. He could even see the mockery and killing intent in Song-Chi's eyes. He was only 1 foot away from killing Song-Chi. All his previous efforts would have been in vain. The consequence of all his previous efforts being in vain was that he would be doomed eternally. He would die a tragic death. Bastard, because of you, the Song family was wiped out by the Palace of Blue Lions. My family, my wife and my children were all killed. Today, I'm going to avenge them. I'm going to torture you and make you suffer. I will torture you for 7 days and 7 nights before I let you die. The ring on Song-Chi's other hand that was covered in blood glowed as a poisonous needle appeared. This needle was different from the one Lu Li used to deal with Hua Qi. Those needles had a black glare, while this one had a colorful glow. Clearly, it was poisonous. This poison is called Immortals Perish. Not even immortals can save you. This poison will torture you for 7 days and 7 nights. In the end, you will watch your body fester and rot bit by bit. Not even immortals can save you. Song-Chi's mouth was still bleeding. It was difficult for him to speak, but he didn't mind. He wanted to make Lu Li afraid, desperate, and in so much pain that he would rather die. Whoosh! Right at that moment, Lu Li's sleeve trembled. Then a ray of white light flew out and shot towards Song-Chi's neck. Everything in the force field was silent and space was frozen. How come Little White was not affected? Lu Li's eyes glowed as he was overjoyed. Little White was amazing. Many inhibition formations were ineffective against it. Now, not even force field could do anything to it. What is that? Song-Chi was so close that he couldn't see clearly. All he saw was a flash of white light and a sharp pain on his neck. Then he felt his head was going to be separated. Good. Lu Li was overjoyed. In the distance, Yi Cha was overjoyed. However, before the smiles on their faces could spread out, they noticed that Song Chi moved his hand before he died. Then the colorful needle pierced through the sky and went into Lu Li's neck. Lu Li was petrified. He wanted to laugh, but his mouth froze. The joy in his eyes faded away and was replaced by endless fear. He could clearly sense that an invisible force was spreading out from the needle. In the time for one breath, the force had spread to every inch of his bones and muscles. Then, he felt there were 10,000 bugs hiding in his body, gnawing at his flesh and bones. The pain was more horrifying than what he suffered at the wicked sorcery mountain. He rolled around on the ground and screamed in pain. Saint Lord, Song Chi's neck was bitten off by Little White. He was dead. The vines no longer glowed purple. Yi Cha broke through the vines and rushed over. Seeing that Lu Li's skin had become colorful, Yi Cha became solemn. He shouted, "It really is one of the top 10 poisons of the Central Plains. The immortals perish. No, I don't think even a god can save him." There were 10 poisons of the Central Plains that had no cure. It was well known at the Central Plains. It was said that there was only one person that could cure it, the abbot of the great Buddhist temple. The thing was, the poison would take effect in 7 days. Lu Li's body would fester and corrode, leaving only a skeleton. How far could Yi Cha take Lu Li with him in 7 days? They would still be at the northern Central Plains, even if they teleported continuously. Bang! Yi Cha knocked Lu Li out in case he had a mental breakdown due to the pain. Yi Cha took Song Chi's interspatial ring, carried Lu Li in his arms, and ran towards the exit with Little White that was roaring anxiously. They could not go to the great Buddhist temple in 7 days, but they could go to the Pavilion of Delicacy. Chapter 447. The Mountain of Stellar Stars was far away from the territory of the Yellow Goblin race. Last time, it took Yi Cha 2 days to get there. This time, it only took him a day and a half, which was a testament to his eagerness. Going to the Pavilion of Delicacy was Lu Li's only chance. For the Cyan Phoenix race, Lu Li was their only chance. Otherwise, the Cyan Phoenix race and the Mammoth race would never have the chance to fight their way back to the Central Plains and take back their ancestral lands. Half a volume of Heaven Augury spell had given the Cyan Phoenix race and the Mammoth race a chance to escape. The two races admired the ancestor that knew the Heaven Augury spell very much. Naturally, they trusted the stone tablet he left behind. Therefore, Lu Li could not die. Lu Li woke up several times during the day. Every time, he could not bear the pain. Yi Cha felt sorry for him. He had to knock Lu Li out many times in case he had a mental breakdown due to the pain. Even though he had passed out, Lu Li was still trembling. His face was twisted in pain, as if he was suffering from indescribable pain. Yi Cha was relieved to see the exit in the distance. They could teleport to the Cloud City in 2 days based on their current speed. Then, after more than a dozen teleportations, they would arrive at the City of Delicacy in 3 days at most. Yi Cha was so powerful that even though there were Yellow Goblin race on the ground, they didn't dare to get closer. On the way, they ran into some powerful warriors of other races, but they were going back the way they came. Those races all knew Yi Cha and thought he was an honored guest of the Stellar race, so they didn't stop him. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Yi Cha arrived at the exit. This place had been occupied by the Hag race. The people on the ground were all warriors of the Hag race. Whoosh, 2 people flew out from the mountain. One of them was Chi Ker, the queen of the Hag race, and the other was a beautiful lady in white. The lady was delighted to see Yi Cha and Lu Li flying over. But when she saw them clearly, her expressions changed. Lu Li, looking at Lu Li whose skin had become colorful, his muscles trembling, and his face twisted in pain, tears welled up in Bai Qiushua's eyes. She flew over quickly and shouted from the distance, "What is wrong with him? Is he hurt? Is it serious?" Yi Cha didn't have time to waste with Bai Qiushua. He explained while flying with Lu Li, "Hua and Song Chi are dead. Saint Lord is poisoned by the immortals perish." I have to take him to the pavilion of delicacy. Hua is dead. Chi Ke was taken aback. She didn't know much about Lu Li's plan. She found it hard to believe. After all, Lu Li was the uncrowned king of the deserted world. Yicha paid no attention to them. To him, Lu Li was the most important. He flew down with Lu Li and was about to reach the exit of the quagmire. Immortals perish. One of the top 10 poisons of the Central Plains? Chi Ke suddenly reacted. Looking at Autumn Snow's pale face, she hurried to shout, "Hold on. You can't find anyone else to cure this poison. I'm sure the people of the Pavilion of Delicacy can't do it either." Yicha paused, turning around and looking at Chi Ke. "What did you say?" Chi Ke thought for a while and said, "Actually, there is no antidote for this poison. Once, a clan leader of a big tribe was poisoned by this poison. He searched the entire Central Plains, but couldn't find anyone who could cure him. Eventually, an elder of our Yiksha clan cured him. However, the elder of our Yiksha clan died in the end." Yicha's eyes glowed with joy. He looked at Chi Ke and said, "So, the Yiksha race can cure him." Bai Qiushue was overjoyed as well. She wiped off her tears, flew over and asked, "Chi Ke, help Lu Li, I can't." Chi Ke shook her head, looked at Bai Qiushue and said, "Not only me, but all the Yiksha race can't. The only one who can do it is you. Only those of the enchantment can cure him. But if you are unlucky, you will die." Boom! Bai Qiushue felt she was struck by a bolt from the blue. Lu Li was poisoned, and she was the only one who could cure him, but she might die. In other words, either Lu Li or she would die. Bai Qiushue had a good temperament, but she was just a teenage girl after all. It was natural for her to be afraid of death. At this moment, she was scared out of instinct. She reacted quickly. After the time for a few breaths, she asked, "Are you sure I can cure him?" "How?" Yicha asked. "Chi Ke, tell me what is going on." As a matter of fact, according to our records, there is no cure for this poison. Chi Ke sighed and said, "This is not an average poison. It is a voodoo poison that originated from the voodoo land of the south. The only ones that can cure it are the powerful warriors of the voodoo land of the south. There are dead poisons and living poisons. Dead poisons are easy to cure, but living poisons are almost impossible. Immortals perish is a living poison. Once it enters the human body, it will disperse into every muscle and blood and merge with the body. According to our records, not even the best elixir in the world can cure this poison. This poison can divide and grow. After killing one batch, another batch will be born. There is no way to eradicate it. The only cure is to suck out the poison and let someone else be poisoned. The enchantment has the ability to transfer the poison. So, it is not a cure, but a transfer of the poison. There is another ability of the enchantment. You should know that there are 3 levels of the enchantment. The first level is called enchantment. The second is enchantment, and the third is awe and demons. If you can reach the 3rd level, you'll not be afraid of demons and gods. You will be able to disperse the poison, and you can even use it to enhance your abilities. So, to save Lu Li, we have to transfer the poison in his body to you. Then, we can freeze her and put her into a state of suspended animation. The poison will be frozen as well, but your soul will not be restricted, and you can learn the enchantment on your own. Of course, the poison will not be completely frozen. It will spread slowly, and it will last for about 100 years. If you cannot learn the 3rd level of the enchantment in 100 years, you will be like that patriarch of our race, sleeping forever. Chi Ke said nothing after her explanation, waiting for Bai Qiushue and Yicha's decision. Yicha's eyes flickered. He didn't know what to say. He knew that even the Pavilion of Delicacy wouldn't be able to save Lu Li. Lu Li and Jiang Qiling were friends, but the Pavilion of Delicacy didn't send over human sovereign realm warriors. Their attitude was clear. The poison was so strong. Even if Lu Li could be saved, he would need some elixirs. Would the Pavilion of Delicacy do that for Lu Li? Yicha knew that Bai Qiushue was Lu Li's beloved. If he instigated Bai Qiushue to do this, Lu Li would tear him apart when he woke up. This Chi Ke is suspicious as well. Yi Chao was a shrewd man. He looked into Qi Ke's eyes, as if he could see what she was thinking. Qi Ke turned her head away with a guilty conscience. Bai Qiuxue was the goddess of the hag race, the hope of the hag race, just like how Lu Li was the hope of the Cyan Phoenix race. If so, why would Qi Ke tell them the solution? Wasn't this pushing their goddess into a pit of fire? It had been so many years since there was a successor that could cultivate the enchantment. Why would Qi Ke want to harm Bai Qiuxue? There must be something wrong. Yi Chao believed that Qi Ke must have her own plan. Maybe she wanted to force Bai Qiuxue into a dead end so that she could reach the third level of the enchantment in 100 years. She would either succeed or die trying. Only by reaching the third level of the enchantment could Bai Qiuxue's abilities soar and she could lead the hag race to greater heights. Chapter 448. Lu Li cannot die. Song Qi and Hua were dead, and the deserted world was in their hands. Lu Li and the Bai family would rise with the deserted world. Lu Li was the man she loved the most. How could she watch him die without doing anything? She could transfer the poison to Bai Qiuxue, and she could have 100 years to cure it. Also, Lu Li would find a way to cure her. Therefore, to save Lu Li, Bai Qiuxue did not have to think too much. She soon figured it out. She hesitated for the time for one incense stick to burn because she was afraid out of instinct. No matter how calm she was still a budding girl. Whether she could survive or not, she would be frozen in the ice for decades. She would not be able to move, but her soul could. In other words, she would become a vegetable, a fake dead person. She would live alone for decades. Everyone would be afraid. Humans were selfish. No matter how good the slogan was, when it happened to them, they would hesitate and reject it out of instinct. Therefore, Yi Chao was impressed and respected that Bai Qiuxue could say that she would save Lu Li in the time for half an incense stick to burn. If Yi Chao were in her shoes, he would hesitate as well. He would hesitate for a longer time, even though he would still choose to save Lu Li in the end. Alas, Qi Ke sighed. She knelt on one knee, looked at Bai Qiuxue and said, "Goddess, please forgive me. Actually, I shouldn't have told you about the detoxification method, but it is hard to find someone who can master the enchantment. Qi Ke does not want to miss this chance. After being frozen, Goddess will not be disturbed by worldly affairs. Her will to survive will be strengthened, and the chances of her reaching the third level of the enchantment will be increased. Only when you reach the third level can you lead the hag race to glory. Qi Ke is guilty. If you fail, I will follow you." Yi Chao was right about Qi Ke's little trick. Yi Chao thought about it and said coldly, "Qi Ke, if young master's poison cannot be cured and Lady Qiuxue is poisoned, don't blame me for being cruel and wiping out the entire hag race." Qi Ke nodded and said, "That is not a problem. There's a clear record in our ancestral records. Goddess and clan leader Yi, you can check it will. Go." Bai Qiuxue didn't waste any more time. As long as she could cure Lu Li and as long as she could reach the third level of the enchantment, she didn't care about anything else. They kept flying toward the royal division of the Ixia race. It would take some time to get to the royal division of the Ixia race. On the way, Qi Ke used a secret method to send messages back and asked her tribesmen to prepare some things. 2 days later, they arrived at the Ixia tribe's royal headquarters. The Ixia tribe's elder handed over a scroll of a secret technique. This secret technique was recorded on a yellowing animal skin. It was obvious that it had been around for a long time. This thing could not be faked. Yi Chao knew that it was real at a glance. Yi Jie and Autumn Snow both understood the ancient language. After checking that there were no problems, Autumn Snow asked, "Where do we detoxify?" On the way, Lu Li woke up for several times. But every time he was in pain. Bai Qiuxue's heart was broken. If it wasn't for the fact that she had to return to the Ixia clan's royal clan to detoxify the poison, Autumn Snow would have already started to think of ways to transfer the poison to the nearby Sky Dragon Snow Mountain. Qi Ke pointed to the north and said, "There's a snow mountain over there. After we detoxify the poison, We must freeze you with a secret skill. Otherwise, once the poison spreads out, you will die in 7 days as well. Chikar took out a yellowing animal skin, handed it to Bai Chioshue, and said, "Goddess, this is the way to transfer the poison. Take a look. There are also notes on the enchantment written by our ancestors. You must memorize them all. Once you are frozen, you will never wake up unless you can master the 3rd level of the enchantment." After a pause, Chikar continued, "Goddess, don't worry and study the enchantment. We will use a special skill to transfer energy into your body to make sure that your body will not die. As long as you can break out from the ice, your body will be as young and beautiful as it is right now." Autumn Snow nodded. She had made up her mind a long time ago. Just like Lu Li, nothing could change her mind once she had made up her mind. She flipped through the scroll quickly, and her cheeks turned red. After a while, she asked in a low voice, "Is this the only way to suck the poison out?" Chikar nodded. She didn't say much since Yicha was here. Bai Chioshua looked at Lu Li with a blushed face and went back to reading. "It's about time. Let's go to the snow mountain." After a while, Bai Chioshua waved her hand and said, "Is everything ready?" "Yes." Chikar nodded and said, "Goddess, this is the most important thing for the hag race. I will not make any mistakes." Bai Chioshua looked at Yicha and flew toward the snow mountain. Chikar, Yicha, and the patriarchs of the hag race went after her. Dozens of flying hags flew up as well. 30 miles to the north, they saw a huge mountain that pierced through the clouds. They flew to the peak. There were many hags guarding the mountain. There was a castle built on the peak which seemed to be newly built. Clan leader Yi, leave Lord Lu to me. Standing outside the castle, Chikar looked at Yicha and added, "You stay outside. It is not convenient." Yicha recalled by Chioshue's blushing face. He gave Chikar a threatening look and said, "Chikar, I hope you don't lie to me. You know the consequences." Chikar nodded and walked in with Lu Li in her arms. Bai Chioshue followed them in quickly. The patriarch of the hag race was the last to close the gate of the castle. Cold. As soon as they entered the castle, a gust of cold air came over them. Even at her realm, Bai Chioshue shivered. Chikar explained, "There's a formation in the castle that can gather the cold air in the snow mountain. Otherwise, it would not be able to form a 10,000-year-old glacier to freeze you up." The castle was not large. There was only a hall and a room. The patriarch opened a room, and it was a world of ice. The walls inside were frozen, and a large bed was also frozen, emitting a dense cold air. Chikar put Lu Li down on the bed and fed him 2 pellets. Then she said to Bai Chioshua, "Holy lady, I have given young master Lu some special pellets. He will react later, but he will not wake up. You just have to follow the instructions. You can leave the rest to us. If you are afraid, we can stay here with you." "No, you stay outside. I will call you when I am ready." It was freezing cold in the room. Bai Chioshue's face was getting redder and redder. She didn't have to suck the venom through her mouth, but she had to use the enchantment to suck all the venom into her body when they were having sex. Alas, Bai Chioshue was a bit disappointed. Girls usually cared about their first time. She had imagined that she would be in a romantic setting and being loved by Lu Li. She didn't expect that it would be in such an environment. What was more, Lu Li didn't know about it. She had to take the initiative. More importantly, after this, she would fall into a long sleep. She would never be able to open her eyes again. She couldn't see this beautiful world by Xia Shuang, Madame Yin, and the Bai family. Chapter 449. Tell clan leader Yi to tell my aunt and Uncle Long that I cannot be a filial son anymore. Please forgive me for my selfishness. Tell my sister to stop fooling around. She must learn to be sensible and take more responsibility for the family. Cultivate hard and revitalize the Bai family. When Lu Li wakes up, tell him not to worry. I will master the 3rd level of the enchantment and break out of the ice. If he does anything rash, I will explode my soul pond. Tell him, I love him. It is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to me to be able to meet him. If I cannot be his wife in this life, We will continue our relationship in our next lives. Bai Qiuxue said some words and then asked Qi to fetch a basin of hot water. She let them out. She shyly untied Lu Li's robe and cleaned the stains on him with the hot water. Soon, the hot water turned into ice water. It was foggy in the room, and the scenery was faintly discernible. Bai Qiuxue blushed. She cleaned Lu Li carefully, not leaving a single spot untouched, like a wife cleaning her paralyzed husband. Lu Li was naked. Qi must have given him some kind of medicine. His muscles were no longer trembling and no longer colorful. It was as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. He slept peacefully, but it was not quiet down there. It was hot and hard. Clearly, another pellet had taken effect. The hag race was good at this, so it was easy for them to get some medicine. After Lu Li was cleaned, Bai Qiuxue leaned on Lu Li shyly. She hugged Lu Li tightly with one hand. Fearing that the man she loved would disappear, she stared at Lu Li's profile with her eyes wide open. Her long eyelashes were trembling. She smiled gently and murmured words of love that she dared not to say normally. That shy and beautiful face, that infatuated and sparkling eyes, could intoxicate all the men in the world. After a while, Bai Qiuxue sat up shyly and straddled Lu Li. She reached to the back of her head and undid the bun. Her hair fell down like a waterfall. Then, she loosened the belt around her waist, and a white robe slowly slid down from her shoulders. The room was extremely cold. The walls were covered in ice, and the bed was also covered in ice. A man and a woman were entangled together. What's more, the woman was on top. The scene was extremely uncoordinated, but it gave people a beautiful and warm feeling. Traces of blood flowed down and landed on the ice bed, slowly spreading out, turning into a blood-dripping plum blossom. It was very eye-catching. Autumn Snow's movements were extremely slow and clumsy. Her brows were tightly knitted together, and there was a faint trace of pain in her eyes. She looked at Lu Li, who was sleeping peacefully with affection and love in her eyes. Her breathing became rapid, and her eyes became blurred. Her swaying movements became more rapid. She was like a beautiful snake twisting on Lu Li's body. Her smooth back was soon covered in sweat, but it immediately froze, forming a thin layer of ice that reflected an alluring luster. Then, it was melted by the heat in her body. Down below, Lu Li's breathing became rapid out of instinct. The toxins in his body began to move at this moment. They gathered below, and then they were sucked out by a strong force. A steady stream of energy flowed into Autumn Snow's body. Swish, finally, all the toxins were ejected out along with a surge of heat. Lu Li suddenly opened his eyes. Seeing the clarity in Lu Li's eyes, Autumn Snow put on a comforting smile. Then, she threw herself into Lu Li's arms. Lu Li didn't show any anger or surprise. He just hugged Bai Qiuxue tightly and whispered in her ear, "Qiuxue, don't worry. I will try my best to help you cure the poison. If you die in the end, I will go with you." Lu Li was fed a pellet by Qi. He seemed to be in a coma, but he was actually conscious. He even heard what Qi and the others were talking about. There was a dragon pattern in his soul pond that could protect his soul. He had guessed everything. He knew that Autumn Snow was about to fall asleep, so he didn't want to waste any more time. He hugged Autumn Snow tightly, trying to give her some warmth. He knew that soon, this girl would be accompanied by coldness. He was alone in the darkness. He couldn't see, hear, eat, or even breathe. Tears ran down from Lu Li's cheeks. He rarely cried. The last time he cried was when Lu Ling was taken away. A man would not cry easily unless he was deeply hurt. Autumn Snow was so weak that she could barely keep her eyes open. She moved her lips and said one last thing. "Don't cry, Lu Li. Live well. I am waiting for you to reach the human sovereign realm and marry me. Wait for me. I will reach the 3rd level of the enchantment. I don't want an afterlife. I want to be with you in this life forever." With that said, Autumn Snow closed her eyes and fell into an eternal sleep. Lu Li took a deep breath and sat up. He helped Autumn Snow put on the robe in a clumsy way. He put on the robe randomly and then opened the door. Looking at Qi, he said, "Take care of the rest. If anything goes wrong, I will kill your entire family." Chikur looked at the murderous Lu Li and went in with the patriarch. They checked Autumn Snow's body carefully and were relieved. Chikur fed Autumn Snow a pellet and activated the inhibition formation in the room. The coldness surged out 10 times faster. Autumn Snow lay on the bed quietly. Her body began to freeze up. In the end, she was covered in ice and became an ice beauty. Luli had been sitting on the edge of the bed. Soon, his body was frozen as well. Chikur and the patriarch did the same, but they used Xian energy to resist the coldness. An hour later, Chikur and the patriarch finished everything. Chikur made sure again and again before she said, "Lord, don't worry. Everything is normal. The toxins are not spreading. You can live for 100 years. I will have Yaoji stay here all year round. Nothing will happen. Get out." Luli didn't move. He moved his lips, and the ice on his mouth cracked. Chikur and Yaoji looked at each other. They left quickly, not daring to stay any longer. After a while, Yicha came in. As soon as he stepped through the door, Luli moved his lips again and said coldly, "Get out. Nobody can come in. I will stay here with Autumn Snow for a while." Luli kept his eyes on Bai Qiushue. He knew that Bai Qiushue could hear his voice and feel that he was with her. Bai Qiushue must be terrified. Even if Luli himself was frozen, but his soul could think, he would be terrified, let alone a young girl. Yicha left in silence. He told Chikur about it, and then flew away on his own. He wanted to make arrangements. They had paid a heavy price in this fight. He must reap the fruits of victory, or else Autumn Snow would have suffered for nothing. The coldness in the room was getting worse. Luli was covered in frost, including his eyebrows and hair. He reached out a hand and put on Autumn Snow's face. He stared at her and murmured, "Autumn Snow, I am here. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." Chapter 450. Sealing people in ice was a common practice in many places at the Central Plains. For example, when someone was seriously injured and there were no elixirs, they would be sealed in ice and put into a state of suspended animation to prolong the time of death. Luli's grandpa once went to the voodoo land of the South by himself. In the end, he came back with serious injuries and he was poisoned. He was sealed in ice as well, in the underground chamber of the blood pond of God. Luli saw with his own eyes how cold it was in that chamber. Today, Bai Qiushue was sealed in ice as well. Nobody knew how long she would be sealed in ice. According to Chikur, nobody in the world could cure the immortals perish, not even the abbot of the great Buddhist temple. The only ones that could cure the immortals perish were powerful warriors of the voodoo land of the South. They were alien races that could never get along with humans. Lu Xingyang, who was once at the Earth Immortal Realm, went to the voodoo land of the South, but he came back with serious injuries. If it were Lu Li, he would be destroyed in minutes. Therefore, Luli didn't do anything stupid. He stayed with Bai Qiushue in the ice room without eating, drinking, or sleeping. Only when he could not stand it would he use Xian energy to dissolve the cold air in case he was sealed in ice. Day after day passed. Chikur and Yaoji didn't dare to come in to persuade Luli. They stayed outside. Yicha went out and came back 5 days later. He brought back the other 4 patriarchs of the Cyan Phoenix race, as well as Meng Ji and the others. He didn't tell Madame Yin and the others anything. The fewer people that knew about the deserted world, the better. He just sent a message to Madame Yin, saying that everything was fine, that Song Qi was killed, and that Madame Yin should deal with the aftermath. Gadameng was on his way. Chikur sent a message to him using his secret method. Chikur sent someone to confirm that Hua was dead. Not even his body was left, and all the powerful warriors of the stellar race were dead. In other words, the Titan race was now the king of the deserted world. If Gadameng went back on his word, he could kill Lu Li, Meng Ji, and Yicha and then dominate the deserted world. Chikur was worried, and so were Yicha and Meng Ji. But Luli stayed in the ice room, and nobody was allowed in. They had to wait at the foot of the snow mountain of dragons. Several days later, God of Meng arrived with the 8 patriarchs of the Titan race. Chi went to greet them. Yicha and Meng Ji were prepared to take Luli away at any time. An hour later, God of Meng arrived at the foot of the snow mountain of dragons. Chi winked at them from the distance. Yicha and Meng Ji were relieved. After all these years, the Titan race was still the same. They kept their promises and kept their promises. God of Meng must have come to pledge his loyalty. Meng Hua, the patriarch of the Titan race, was defeated by Lu Li. Meng Hua was a man of his word, and he did not resort to trickery. If he said he lost, then he lost. The Titan race originated from the Mammoth race. The Mammoth race was all brawn and no brains. There were many things that the Mammoth race was unwilling to think about. Hence, for so many years, the Mammoth race had always been dependent on the Green Phoenix race. The Green Phoenix race was responsible for all the brainstorming matters, while the Mammoth race was responsible for charging into battle. God of Meng came with 8 patriarchs, all of whom were at the Noble Lord realm. The 8 patriarchs stood in a line behind God of Meng with solemn expressions. God of Meng looked at Yicha and Meng Ji, who were standing in front of the mountain, and said, "Young master, please come out. I am willing to accept my defeat, and I am here to pledge my loyalty." Yicha flew up at once. Meng Ji nodded and said, "God of Meng, as the clan leader of the Mammoth race, I declare that from today on, we will let bygones be bygones. From now on, the Titan race and the Mammoth race belong to the same race, and we will share honor and disgrace. Greetings, clan leader." This time, God of Meng was very polite. He got down on one knee with the 8 patriarchs, put one hand on his chest, and bowed. As a matter of fact, Meng Ji was the reason why God of Meng could pledge his loyalty to Lu Li. God of Meng would never forget the words of the founding patriarch of the Titan race. To be able to fulfill the wishes of the founding patriarch in his generation and gain the recognition of the Mammoth race, God of Meng would be able to face his ancestors after his death. Whoosh! Before Yicha could fly up, Lu Li had flown down from the snow mountain of dragons. He stood in midair on his silver fate wheel. There was no emotion on his face, but coldness in the depth of his eyes. He looked at God of Meng and shouted, "God of Meng, I, Lu Li, accept your loyalty. From now on, we will share life and death, honor and disgrace. I will try my best to bring you back to the Central Plains and take back our ancestral land. If I break my promise, let me sink into the ocean of hell forever." God of Meng gave Lu Li a meaningful look. Then he lowered his noble head and shouted, "Greetings, Saint Lord." Meng Hua and the 8 patriarchs bowed as well and shouted, "Greetings, Saint Lord. Get up. You don't have to salute me in the future." Lu Li said coldly. A human sovereign realm warrior was kneeling in front of him, but he didn't show any joy or complacency. He was just a 17-year-old human young man. Facing such a powerful warrior, Lu Li didn't show any trace of uneasiness or panic. Instead, he was calm. It was as if it was a matter of course. Even Meng Hua and the others felt depressed. It was as if the man standing in front of them was not a human young man at the Fate Wheel realm, but an Earth immortal realm warrior. God of Meng and the others stood up. Lu Li glanced over and shouted, "God of Meng, Meng Ji Yicha." Yicha flew down and stood with Meng Ji and God of Meng. The 3 cupped their fists and said, "Yes, sir. Unify the deserted world." Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Kill any race that refuses to obey. At the same time, seal off all passageways. Do not let any information get out." Yes, God of Meng and the others accepted the order. Lu Li flew up. He stopped in midair, looked at God of Meng, and asked, "God of Meng, do you know how to cure the immortals' perish?" God of Meng thought about it and shook his head. "I don't know. There is no record of it in the ancestral records of the Titan race." "Okay, it's okay now." Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Come and see me after unifying the deserted world. Otherwise, you don't have to come back." Yes, God of Meng bowed again. Just like the Mammoth race, they were all one-track minded. They would either not make up their minds about something, and once they made up their minds, they would not hesitate. Luli disappeared from a peak. God of Meng looked at him and asked Meng Ji, "What happened, Saint Lord?" Meng Ji turned to Yi Cha, who shook his head and said, "It's a long story. Young master was poisoned by the immortal's perish. His lover transferred the poison to herself in order to save him. She is frozen now. She has 100 years left at most." "Oh," God of Meng answered. He was a bit relieved. A lady was willing to sacrifice her life for Lu Li and was poisoned herself. Lu Li was a good man. The Cyan Phoenix race had always been smart and cunning. Yi Cha was so loyal to Lu Li. Maybe the half-volume of Heaven Augury spell was right. "Let's go. Hua is dead. The deserted world is within our reach. We can sweep across the deserted world easily." God of Meng was delighted. After being suppressed by the stellar race for so many years, the Titan race could finally vent their anger. "Okay, Brother 4, stay. The rest of you, go and conquer the deserted world." A glint of killing intent rose in Yi Cha's eyes. Conquering the deserted world meant that the Cyan Phoenix race and the Mammoth race were one step closer to killing their way back to the Central Plains and taking back their ancestral land. Chapter 451. God of Meng, the 8 patriarchs, Yi Cha, Meng Ji, and the other 2 patriarchs began their journey to conquer the deserted world. However, it was easy to conquer the world, but hard to deal with the aftermath. Yi Cha still asked Chi Ke to bring hundreds of flying yikshaws to deal with the aftermath and collect the trophies. Recently, the Yellow Goblin race had suffered a calamity. So many experts had barged into their king division. God of Meng wasted no time. He punched the Yellow Goblin's patriarch to death, and the other patriarchs were killed by Yi Cha and the others. Then, all the Yellow Goblins surrendered. In fact, after the death of Hua, the races affiliated to the Stellar race were mentally prepared. The Titan race and the Stellar race had always been enemies. Now that Hua was dead, God of Meng would not let it go. Even after they surrendered, God of Meng didn't let the Yellow Goblins go. He ordered the hags to kill all the powerful warriors of the Yellow Goblins, take all the mystical materials, and occupy the load. Then came the second race, a big one. It was the White Hair race that Lu Li and Yi Cha passed by. 3 of the noble Lord Realm warriors of the White Hair race were killed by Song Qi. There were 4 left. Faced with a human Sovereign Realm warrior, they could barely fight back and were defeated easily. That being said, the White Hair race had a backbone. They didn't surrender, even though their noble Lord Realm warriors were killed. God of Meng was enraged. He ordered a bloodbath. Yi Cha, Meng Ji, and the others were not easy to deal with. They carried out a bloodbath across the entire White Hair race. Chi Ke, Yao Ji, and Yiksha took action as well. A day later, everyone continued on their way. Not a single one of the more than 10,000 White Hair clan clansmen was left, all of them killed. These ancient races treated their allies very passionately, wishing that they could let their wives sleep with their friends. However, they were ruthless towards their enemies. Either they didn't make a move, or once they made a move, they would definitely exterminate the other party's clan to prevent the other party from rising up in the future to take revenge. In the antiquity time, there were at least tens of thousands of races in the divine Great Land. However, after the 3 wars of 10,000 races, more than half of these races were completely annihilated. Most of the races that were exterminated weren't actually killed by the human race, but by the war between the 10,000 races. As soon as Lu Li gave the order, the entire deserted world was plunged into bloodshed. There were 18 races in the deserted world. 6 were loyal to the Titan race, and the other 10 were loyal to the Stellar race. From the looks of it, apart from the 6 races that were loyal to the Titan tribe, the remaining 11 races were probably doomed. Even if they didn't go extinct this time, they would definitely be exterminated in the end. Benevolence and righteousness? In the eyes of the special races, no, in the entire divine Great Land, or even the entire world, these words did not exist. Even if there were, it would be towards people of the same race. Those who were not of the same race would definitely have different intentions. This was the heaven reverse universe, the reality. It was not as beautiful as in the fairy tales. There was only profit and cruelty. Luli didn't mind God of Meng and the others. If so many powerful warriors couldn't unify the deserted world, God of Meng would have been killed by Hua. He was still in the ice room. He was not as crazy as Jiang Qiling. Instead, he was calm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left early when God of Meng showed up. The reason why Autumn Snow paid such a huge price wasn't because she wanted him to sink into depravity, to fall into depravity, or to be depressed. He knew that although Autumn Snow was sealed in ice, she was still able to sense the situation outside. Therefore, he could not be depressed or dispirited. Instead, he had to pull himself together. He couldn't let down Autumn Snow's expectations. He couldn't let her efforts go to waste. He stayed in the ice room because he wanted to spend some time with Autumn Snow so that she wouldn't be scared or flustered. He sat cross-legged at the side and cultivated. Every few hours, he would stop and approach the glacier to speak a few words to Autumn Snow. He told her that he'd been here all this while Luli never smiled during those days. He felt the burden on his shoulders was getting heavier and heavier. He hadn't saved his parents, and he didn't know where his sister was. Now there was Autumn Snow. Sometimes he felt he was the bane of his existence. When he was born, his mother was badly injured. To save his mother, his father jumped into the ice abyss, and it had been 17 years. Then, his sister was burned to death to save him. Even though she was reborn, he didn't know where she was now. This time, Autumn Snow was sealed in ice for 100 years to save him. He felt he had committed a grave sin. However, he couldn't overthink, and he couldn't let himself get depressed. He had to grit his teeth and move forward step by step. He didn't know when he would reach the destination. Lu Finghua, Lu Swan, and Lu and I would sneak up on him every now and then. The Cyan Phoenix race, the Mammoth race, and the Titan race could be discovered at any time. By then, the powerful warriors of the six forces, including the Samsara Palace, would sweep across the northern desert. The Bai family and the Yu family had pinned their hopes on him. Who would he place his hope on? He was the emperor of the northern desert with many powerful warriors working for him. Several major families and even human sovereign realm warriors were his subordinates. He seemed to be in the limelight, high and mighty. But who could know how much pressure he was under? Just as Autumn Snow was a girl, Luli was just a 17-year-old young man. 2 years ago, he was still at the De Long tribe, pulling coffins for the Lu family. Back then, he had his sister to rely on. Now, he had nobody to rely on. Instead, he had to hold up the sky for others. Phew. Luli exhaled. Soon, his breath was frozen by the cold air. Even his mouth was frozen. His gaze shifted to Autumn Snow, who was in the glacier beside him. Gradually, his perplexed eyes were filled with determination. He had no time to be sentimental. He was not living for himself. He was living for his parents, for Lu Ling, and for Bai Qiuxue. No matter how difficult this path was, at least he was still alive. He was not suffering. On the other hand, he and the others were suffering and their lives were in danger. Thinking of this, Luli put aside everything else and devoted himself to cultivation. The northern desert had quieted down recently. Yicha sent back the news that Song Qi was killed. Madame Yin and the others were relieved. Even though they didn't know how Lu Li and Yicha killed Song Qi, Yicha would not lie. Lu Li and Bai Qiushue's jade talisman of life was still intact. The rumors were all over the place because Madame Yin had let them be. At the same time, they were trying to lure the snake out of its hole to see which families were stirring up trouble behind the scenes. After Yu Huashan's bloodbath and Madame Yan's notice of safety, the chaos at the northern desert was settled down soon. Even though Lu Li and Yi Cha didn't come out recently, everyone was relieved. The only one who was still worried was Bai Xiaoshuang. Recently, Bai Xiaoshuang had been feeling cold. She would shiver for no reason. She was panicking, especially at night. Especially at night, he was even more afraid. He often woke up from his dreams with a start, drenched in sweat. She had been having a strange dream recently. She dreamed that she was locked up in a dark room without any light. No matter how she shouted for help, how she ran and how she struggled, she could not get out of the dark room. She told Madame Yin about it. Madame Yin went to several doctors, but found nothing wrong. Madame Yin had too many things to deal with. She didn't have time to talk to Bai Xiaoshuang. She only told her to rest more. Maybe she was under too much pressure and scared. Not scared. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with my sister. Bai Xiaoshuang was getting more and more frightened. She had a strong telepathic connection with Bai Qiuxue. When she was little, Bai Xiaoshuang was injured and Bai Qiuxue was ill for half a month. By the time she recovered from her injuries, Autumn Snow had already recovered. I need to go find my sister. Bai Xiaoshuang's eyes were filled with tears. She said nothing. She quietly went to the teleportation formation and went to the Heaven Prison City. Then she went out to the sea alone. She didn't know what had happened to Bai Qiuxue. All she knew was that they were twins and they were the closest people to each other. Bai Qiuxue was suffering. Chapter 452. Linglong Island, Wunwa Cliff. This was the place where the descendants of the Jiang clan would be punished for their mistakes. There were many caves on the cliff. If they made a mistake, the clan would sentence them to meditate in seclusion for a few months or a year. Usually, after the descendants of the clan were punished, they would stay in the cave and cultivate. Even if they were dissatisfied, they wouldn't voice it out. They would only cultivate in silence. Otherwise, they would be punished for a longer period of time. In a cave in the middle of the cliff, there was a woman imprisoned. The woman was very beautiful. Her lips were as red as flames. She wore a bright red dress. Her skin was white and smooth. Her beautiful face was thin and pale. She looked delicate and pitiful, which made people feel sorry for her. At this moment, the woman was leaning against the cliff wall with her arms around her knees. She didn't wear any shoes, revealing a pair of delicate feet. Her chin was resting on her knees. Her eyes were half open as if her soul had left her body. Her entire body was emitting a thick aura of death. That's right, it was the aura of death. An aura that should have appeared on an old man actually appeared on a young woman. It was extremely incongruous. Young lady, don't blame the clan king. He is doing this for your own good. You haven't eaten anything for half a month. Your body will be damaged if you continue like this. Eat something quickly. There was an old woman beside the woman who kept persuading her. Tears streamed down her face, but the woman turned a deaf ear. There was no change of emotion on her face. Her eyes were empty as if she had been abandoned by the whole world. Young lady, eat something. If you continue like this, the clan king will kill me. The old woman said and shed tears again. This old woman's death won't be regretted. I'm just afraid that my 3-year-old grandson will suffer. Young lady, please have a bite. The old woman even used the trick of injuring herself, but the woman still didn't have any reaction. It was as if her soul had flown away and couldn't hear anything. Even if the sky collapsed outside, she wouldn't care. There was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. Buzz. The space in the cave fluctuated slightly. A figure appeared out of thin air. This person's aura was obviously suppressed, but just one look was enough to make the old woman pale with fright. She quickly knelt down and said, "Clan King, please forgive me. I'll try my best." Miss Shi. Jiang Hua waved his hand, and the old lady flew down in fear. Jiang Hua looked at the lady in front of him and sighed. He said softly, "Why are you doing this? After fooling around for so many years, did it have to be like this? Will you only feel better if you anger me to death?" While talking, Jiang Hua kept staring into her eyes. However, Jiang Qiling's pupils never changed. Her eyes were dull, as if she didn't hear Jiang Hua at all. Jiang Hua's expressions changed. Jiang Qiling looked exactly the same as before. She sat like this for an entire month after that man was hounded to death by him. He had underestimated how important Lu Li was to her. As a matter of fact, Lu Li was her only support. She had a bet with Lu Li. If she could accomplish 2 things, Luli would kowtow to her and wash her feet. Now that Luli was gone, what was the point of her living? Jiang Qiling, Jiang Wuo shouted. His voice was not loud, but it shook Jiang Qiling's soul. Finally, he saw some changes in Jiang Qiling's eyes. He sighed again and said, Song Qi is dead. Luli is alive. Buzzing, Jiang Qiling's eyes glowed as if she had come back to life. She stood up abruptly and walked out of the cave in strides. Jiang Wuo grabbed Jiang Qiling's arm. She turned around with coldness in her eyes, as if she was looking at a stranger. Jiang Wuo's heart was hurt by the look. He could not tell what he was feeling. There was a glint of pain in his eyes. He shook his head and sighed. Luli is right. I have failed as a father, Jiang Qiling said in a self-deprecating manner. She stared at Jiang Wuo coldly. Jiang Wuo thought about it and said, Luli is not at the northern desert. He must be in a small world. My people cannot find him. If you want to find him, wait until he is back at the northern desert. I allow you to go and find him. Jiang Qiling still said nothing. She stared at Jiang Wuo coldly, like a stubborn lion cub. After a while, Jiang Wuo let go of her hand and shouted, Jiang Yi. A gray-haired old man flew up. He was a human sovereign realm warrior. He bowed and said, Family patriarch. Jiang Wuo waved his hand and said, Go to the northern desert with Ling. Jiang Qiling looked away. She took out her fate wheel and flew out of the island of delicacy. Jiang Yi, the patriarch of the Jiang family, followed her. Alas, Jiang Wuo was troubled. He had no way to deal with Jiang Qiling. But Luli was abandoned by the Lu family. If he allowed them to be together, Lu Zhangtan would turn against Jiang Wuo. The thing was, Jiang Wuo didn't dare to touch Luli now. He was scared by Jiang Qiling. If anything happened to Luli, nobody could save Jiang Qiling. Lu Renwang. A glint of anger rose in Jiang Wuo's eyes. He murmured, When we were young, you were more powerful than me. Now that I have become the master of the Pavilion of Delicacy, I am more powerful than you. Now, your son is here to hurt my daughter. You'd better not show your face, or I will kill you. Northern Desert, the area of demons. Bai Xiaoshuang flew to the tornado on her purple gold chariot. The Bai family warriors guarding here flew over. A patriarch cupped his fists and said, Lady Shuang, the emperor has ordered that nobody can go in. Piss off. Bai Xiaoshuang glared at the patriarch of the Bai family and said, Are you from the Lu family or of the Bai family? What's more, not even Luli can stop me. With that said, Bai Xiaoshuang took out her fate wheel and dashed into the tornado in a blur. The warriors of the Bai family didn't dare to stop her. The patriarch had to follow her in. Bai Xiaoshuang rushed to the entrance of the deserted world as soon as she entered the small world of green dwarfs. She knew Lu Li and the others must be in there. She didn't know what it was like in the deserted world, but she had to go in. At the entrance, Bai Xiaoshuang was stopped as well. There were 3 patriarchs of the Bai family here, and there was a formation at the entrance. The patriarch said at the same time that Bai Xiaoshuang was not allowed in. Bai Xiaoshuang took out a saber and put it on her neck. The patriarchs had to open the formation. 1 patriarch stayed, and the other 3 patriarchs of the Eternal Realm followed Bai Xiaoshuang in. Whoosh, whoosh, as soon as they went in, they were surrounded by the hag race. But when they saw Bai Xiaoshuang, they all knelt down and screamed. Clearly, they thought Bai Xiaoshuang was Bai Qiuxue, the goddess of the hag race. Bai Xiaoshuang was shrewd and simple-minded. She didn't care if there was danger or not. Why would the hag race do this? She flew up on her fate wheel and flew toward the snow mountain of dragons. After she entered the deserted world, her feeling became more and more obvious. Bai Qiuxue was here, and she was suffering. She must find Bai Qiuxue. The patriarchs made up their minds and followed her. Naturally, the flying hag race followed them. They asked a few questions on the way, but Bai Xiaoshuang and the others did not understand, so they ignored them. After flying for several days and nights, they finally arrived at the snow mountain of dragons. Standing at the foot of the mountain, Bai Xiaoshuang couldn't stop trembling. Tears slid down her cheeks. She looked up at the castle at the peak of the mountain. Somehow, she felt pain in her heart. Qi Ke and Yaoji had gone to the deserted world with God of Meng. Fortunately, a patriarch of the Cyan Phoenix race was still guarding on the mountain. He hurried to welcome Bai Xiaoshuang and the others. Chapter 453. Bai Xiaoshuang was here. Luli did not blame her for disobeying his orders. Instead, he felt guilty. He could understand the relationship between Bai Xiaoshuang and Bai Qiuxue. They shared the same life. If one of them died, the other could die of illness. They were connected by blood, and they were close. Bai Xiaoshuang collapsed to the ground, but she did not pass out. Soon, she crawled back up, trembling. She was trembling. Maybe it was because of the coldness or the fear and panic. She walked toward Bai Qiuxue step by step without looking at Luli. She walked to the ice bed and touched the ice around Bai Qiuxue. Then she took out a dagger and was about to cut the ice to save Bai Qiuxue. Luli moved. He grabbed Bai Xiaoshuang's hands. Seeing that she was still struggling, Luli had to hold her in his arms. He said, Bai Xiaoshuang, don't be crazy. Your sister is not dead yet. If you do anything, she will die right away. Bai Xiaoshuang stopped moving. She looked up at Luli with tears in her eyes and asked, Luli, what happened to my sister? What happened to her? I am scared. I cannot lose my sister. It's okay. Luli's heart was breaking. He patted Bai Xiaoshuang's head and comforted her. Your sister is poisoned. I have someone to freeze her to prevent the poison from spreading. Don't worry. I will cure her as soon as possible. I swear on my life. Okay. Somehow, Bai Xiaoshuang felt relieved. Luli was so determined, and he swore on his life. She was a simple-minded girl. She believed that Luli would do what he promised. I need to take my sister back. I need to take her back, Bai Xiaoshuang said after some thoughts. Luli shook his head and said, Do not move before the antidote is removed. Once the ice is broken, your sister will die right away. If you are worried, stay here with her for a while. Okay, Bai Xiaoshuang nodded and said, Then I will stay here with my sister until the day she wakes up. I will not go anywhere. I will stay here. Luli breathed in relief. Somehow, he felt relieved. Bai Xiaoshuang and Bai Qiuxue had a strong telepathic connection. Bai Qiuxue must know that Bai Xiaoshuang was here with her. At least, she would not be so scared and lonely. Luli had many things to do. He had to find a cure for Bai Qiuxue. Even though he would be here when he was free, he would feel better with Bai Xiaoshuang here. Okay, I will have someone build a castle nearby. Luli thought about it and said, You can live here from now on. I will send you all the mystical materials and pellets you need for cultivation. Xiaoshuang Lu, Xiaoshuang, Lu Xiaoshuang, Qiuxue said, and you tell you. Seeing how Bai Qiuxue was behaving, Bai Xiaoshuang suddenly became more sensible. She nodded with tears in her eyes and said, Don't worry, Luli. I will look after my sister. She will be fine. I will not do anything. Hua Luli, Qiu can. Luli stood up and walked out. At the door, he warned again, Remember, do not touch your sister or she will die right away. Bai Xiaoshuang nodded with tears in her eyes. Luli walked out, looked at the 3 patriarchs of the Bai family, and ordered, From now on, you will stay here and do not leave. Anyone that wants to hurt them will have to walk over your dead bodies. Do you understand? Yes, your majesty. The 3 patriarchs of the Bai family bowed. Luli looked at 4th patriarch of the Cyan Phoenix race. They walked to the side, and Luli asked, How is God of Meng doing? They are fine. 4th patriarch nodded and said, Recently, many mystical materials have been transported back. They are piled up like a mountain. A flying hags told me that God of Meng and our family patriarch have conquered 7 or 8 major races, and they are about to unify the deserted world. Okay, Luli was not worried. God of Meng could conquer the entire deserted world by himself. The deserted world was in his hands. Luli took out some dried meat and began to chew. 4th patriarch was about to send someone to prepare food when Luli waved his hand. He began to think. Bai Qiuxue was under Bai Xiaoshuang's protection, so he didn't have to worry. It was time for him to do what he had to do. There were so many mystical materials in the deserted world that he had to sell and trade for the mystical materials that the patriarchs of the Titan race needed to make breakthroughs. If Chi-Kur of the Titan race could reach the human sovereign realm or two more, Lu Li's forces would grow. At the very least, next time Lu Finghua and Lu Xuan launched sneak attacks, Lu Li wouldn't be at a loss. The problem was, how much were the mystical materials sold? The northern desert was short of resources, and there were few good ones. Bringing a batch of precious mystical materials to be sold would attract the attention of big families. By following the clues, Lu Li would be exposed soon. Even if he didn't, some big families would covet the mystical materials. While Lu Li was thinking, a small beast flew over from the distance and jumped into Lu Li's arms in a blur. Squeak, squeak, little White had been wandering around nearby. Patriarch 4 of the Cyan Phoenix race knew that it was Lu Li's pet, so he told the hag race nearby to keep an eye on it and not to hurt it. Little White had been sleeping for a long time, and Lu Li had locked himself up. Little White was bored. It ran around all over the mountains and the plains, chasing the beasts away. Squeak, squeak, Little White barked affectionately. Seeing the worry in its eyes, Lu Li smiled and patted its head. Crack! At that moment, a jade talisman on Lu Li's waist suddenly cracked. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes. He put Little White on his shoulder and took out the jade talisman. The jade talisman had a special meaning. Lu Li had several with him, and this one had a mark on it. The cracking of the jade talisman indicated that there was trouble outside, but it wasn't fatal. Song Chi is dead. Are there any surviving members of the Song family? Lu Li frowned. He didn't want to go out now. The deserted world hadn't been unified yet, so he was worried about by Qiu Xue. But since Madame Yin had sent a message, there must be something she couldn't handle. After some thoughts, Lu Li went in and told Bai Xiaoshuang to stay here and keep Bai Qiu Xue company. At the same time, he gave Bai Xiaoshuang some pellets of delicacy and soul crystals from his interspatial ring. These should be enough for Bai Xiaoshuang to reach the middle stage of the Fate Wheel realm. Lu Li called over some flying hags and asked them to ask God of Meng about the situation. At the same time, he sent a message to Yi Cha to the exit of the deserted world and asked Chi-Kur to come back. The flying hags left. Lu Li sat in the castle and waited quietly. Half a day later, the flying hags came back and talked to Patriarch 4. Patriarch 4 explained, "Everything is going well. In half a month at most, we will be able to unify the deserted world. Our clan leader has gone to the exit of the deserted world, and Chi-Kur is on her way as well." Okay. Lu Li was relieved. He told Patriarch 4 to protect Bai Qiu Xue and Bai Xiaoshuang, and to knock them out and imprison them if they were to cause any trouble. If anything happened to the twins, Lu Li would ask Patriarch 4 to behead him. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.